Diego Angel gone and Rockstar now at the helm, they wanted to try to make a Western game that expanded on Red Dead Revolver, and also bring to life the vision that the Hauser brothers had at the time. I remember Sam loved the Wild Bunch, and certainly that was a huge influence on Redemption, says Spilkin. I think when he saw Red Dead Revolver, he kind of imagined what he wanted the game to be eventually and decided that that was the path to do that. At Sony's press conference at E3 2005, Rockstar showed a demo of what would later become a prototype for Red Dead Redemption.
I think what we're most looking forward to creating in a PlayStation 3 game is a truly realized, truly immersive, living, breathing world. This is what we live for. You know, every 5 or 6 years, this amazing company like Sony comes along and gives you this wonderful new piece of equipment that allows you to start unlocking your visions and unlocking the dreams that you've been having for however long. With Cell and with PlayStation 3, we feel very excited and very confident that we're going to be able to absolutely push the limits of what can be created and the experiences that we can immerse our audience in. We really know that we're going to be able to go to the next level in terms of realistic simulations and realistic immersions combined with incredible narrative, incredible storytelling, and those two components combined are what are going to create the experiences of the future.
And now, I have the final and the biggest announcement. Everyone, this is PlayStation 3.
As the curtains were drawn on Sony's PlayStation 3 at E3 2005, the world was given its first glimpse at Rockstar's new Western, a game that would remain an anonymous mystery for some time to come. It was with a very small team, says Hauser of that early demo, and it was really just to show off the tech to show that we could get something running on the PS3, which at that point was very challenging. But further development for this project wouldn't start for well over a year due to Rockstar San Diego focusing their efforts on Rage, the engine that debuted with Rockstar Table Tennis in 2006, and the engine that the studio would hope to use for character animations and in-game physics in future projects. By 2006, a core development team was established led by those who had worked on Red Dead Revolver, such as Ted Carson, Josh Bays, and Darren Bader, as well as new talent recruited from other studios such as Christian Cantamesa, who worked on GTA San Andreas, and whose experience helped in accomplishing what Rockstar had desired and envisioned for that game. He also helped with the writing of Red Dead Redemption's story.
Later. Welcome home.
On May 23, 2006, Rockstar Table Tennis was released, and due to the success of the Rage engine in the game, it was a no-brainer for Rockstar to incorporate this engine as well as Euphoria in games such as GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption.
0-1.
In order to create a story for this game, the Rockstar team watched an enormous amount of Western films to draw inspiration. Obviously, we're trying to tell a visual, narrative-driven story, so we'd be foolish not to borrow from films, Hauser said. The Mexican section of the game, for example, is inspired by the Wild Bunch and the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and the action sequences borrow visual techniques including precise camera angles from classic shootout scenes, even from non-westerns such as Heat.
Get on your knees! Get on your knees! Get on your knees!
It was also in this year that Dan Hauser, Michael Unsworth, and Christian Cantamesa started to write the script for Red Dead Redemption. which was around 1,500 pages and was completed in 2008. On August 21st, 2006, Garrett Flynn vs. Angel Studios / Rockstar was filed by ex-Rockstar San Diego 3D artists Terry Kim Chukri and Garrett Flynn on behalf of themselves and fellow 3D artists, alleging that Angel Studios / Rockstar San Diego had failed to provide overtime compensation to certain Angel employees. This case wouldn't be settled until 2009. The claims filed in 2006 weren't the first time that Rockstar had overtime / work condition issues, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. A former employee who worked on Red Dead Redemption in 2007 wrote in a blog that was later published in a Game Informer article in 2010, had this to say about his experiences in 2007. A former Red Dead Redemption developer recently reminisced about his job on his blog, and his memories aren't exactly filled with fondness. In his blog post entitled My Life at Rockstar Games, artist Zero Dean chronicled his tumultuous experience working at Rockstar San Diego during the development of the studio's landmark open-world Western game. From his first few weeks as a new employee in 2007, Dean instantly felt estranged from his fellow employees in the development process, saying, "When I asked about learning materials, I was told that maybe something could be done and that there might be something in the budget to buy some instructional videos. Nothing ever came of this. It really wasn't until after my first year at the company when people, higher-ups, started freaking out about how long the project had been in development, how much money was being wasted, and this is the big one, release dates," he wrote. And that's when the increase in deception and manipulation by management began slowly at first, and then over time, it got totally nuts. The situation at Rockstar only got worse. Hours increased from 8 to 12, and days increased from 5 to 6. Anyone working on a salary was not compensated for the additional hours. As far as our paychecks were concerned, we were still only putting in 40 hours a week. Morale continued to deteriorate as the lies increased, he continued, and everyone was on edge, and we were being spoken to in meetings like incompetent 10-year-olds. Things finally came to a head for Zero Dean when his superior supposedly took credit for his work. But it wasn't until my boss took credit for my work and politely argued with me about who had actually created it. I had the original documents on my desktop. Then I went back to my desk and started cleaning it. Then I realized I wasn't cleaning it, I was packing. I was pretty upset with him over that for a while, but I realize now that he deserves my thanks. He pushed me out of hell, and thank you, Rockstar. You taught me exactly how I don't want to run a business or treat employees, or human beings, ever. This will not be the only time that a former worker had a dispute or disagreement with Rockstar, as we will see in the years to come that more events will ensue. This was also the year that Rockstar co-founder Terry Donovan left the company, which seemed to have an impact on the direction of it, but we'll touch on this again later. In 2008. It was sometime during this year that the script for Red Dead Redemption was written and eventually completed. All of the pieces fell into place to bring this project to life, such as technical aspects, sound and music, and now the most important step was to find the talent to portray these characters. Red Dead Redemption featured around 450 characters with a cast of approximately 100 incidental and 50 main performers. The game required a large amount of character dialogue to bring the story to life. Hauser compared the amount of dialogue required for Grand Theft Auto 4 and felt the team was halfway there with his prior work on San Andreas and Bully.
Never in all my life! Hopkins, you're quite the nastiest little boy I have ever encountered!
As the story developed, a range of characters were organically created based on the period. The character of Edgar Ross was partly inspired by lawyer and political activist Charles Joseph Bonaparte and Tom Horn, while other characters were inspired by historical figures of the 20th century, including John Marston being inspired by Frank James and Bonnie McFarlane by Pearl Hart. From an interview with Dan Hauser in 2010 from IGN, the article called Red Dead Redemption Once Upon a Time in the West. Redemption's biggest revision to the classic Western template, however, is simple: its date. Set at the turn of the century, a handful of years prior to the outbreak of the First World War, and well beyond the established timeline of the Old West. The reasoning behind this was twofold. Dan Hauser said, "From a game design standpoint, it gave us a big tool set to play with. With this, we wanted to give ourselves all the strengths of the West, horses and stagecoaches and lassos and a lot of things you couldn't really do in a GTA game. But also give ourselves as much modern stuff to play with like trains, explosives, and so on. From a story perspective, it felt more interesting. Doing a classical we are conquering this wilderness story didn't seem very interesting to us. But having this interface in a period of great change between this savage, horrendous world with delusions of nobility evolving to a modern society, it seemed very interesting. More interesting than some deluded settler subduing savages in their mind. That seemed like it would be excessively limiting and not something we would agree with the politics of. The game is about, from our perspective, this movement of some kind of violent freedom to some kind of a much more overt state control. The movement from the individual to a larger collective where you have a lot less individual control over your life, or at least it feels that way. Whether you have that control or not is clear, but I think the movement from a primitive time to a time that we could see enormous parallels with our own time is what we found most interesting from that period.
When I hear about this so-called federal government sending out agents to covertly murder and control people, then I start to worry. I mean, yeah, all right, Williamson is a menace, and men like him are the plague. But isn't a government agent a worse menace? And all that symbolizes, I mean.
You may be right, sir.
But you tell your friends out east that we don't want to live like that out here. Sneaking around and spying and...
Redemption is said to be a tale about the loss of both innocence and freedom. The in-game rise of the federal agency, the Bureau, foretelling some of the 20th century's more sinister histories, and touching, albeit obtusely, on the modern day. Although there's no explicit references in shaping its caricature of America that hosts the GTA games. It's not meant to be a satire on contemporary America, insists Hauser. It's not like Asterix, which was a satire of 1960s France looking at it through 50 BC Gaul.
Ah, something tells me there are Romans around here.
But if our research and theories were correct that America began to evolve into its modern form around that period between 1910 and the end of the First World War, so of course there's going to be parallels with it today. I was always slightly scared and slightly running away from the fact that we'd never written a game dialogue-wise that wasn't contemporary, says Hauser. As time was moving on and it was becoming a reality, we had to figure out a good linguistic style for these people to speak that didn't sound ludicrously anachronistic, but equally didn't sound ludicrously slow and bombastic. It was about finding a sweet spot where the characters felt like they were from that time, but didn't feel cold and austere. The challenge with the Western is that we didn't want to turn to something that's very camp, Dan says, citing Blazing Saddles as an example of territory that Rockstar was keen to avoid.
Oh, you know, the Camp Town ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah.
But certainly we didn't want to be very pompous, so finding a balance between those two was certainly a tonal challenge. It's the same kind of challenge with GTA. Finding that balance and making it believable so that your character is doing all these insanely crazy things, but equally isn't so serious and up itself. We're always trying to do that. We might do it in a slightly different way each time, but that's definitely something we look at with all the games. And I suppose, in short, it's trying to make the world come to life properly.
Relax. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. You're gonna find out who took our...
An interview from GameFanMag.com. This is an interview with Christian Cantamesa, one of the writers of Red Dead Redemption. Game Fan Mag. From Clint Eastwood's spaghetti western to HBO's gritty Deadwood, this genre has been portrayed in many ways in pop culture. Where does Redemption most draw its pop culture inspirations? Earlier Rockstar games tended to have direct inspirations within pop culture, as we needed to draw with pretty broad brushstrokes on PS2. But since we moved on to high-definition consoles, our thought process has been to try and be more subtle with our references, and to try to create something unique and original using our own design, writing, and research teams. We believe games are now sufficiently detailed to support this kind of approach. For Red Dead Redemption, the focus was to create a western that took place in a fairly unusual time period, the turn of the 20th century, when the Old West started to disappear and the modern world began to take root. This is much later than many of the classic westerns that are usually set between around 1840 and 1880, when the West itself was still being conquered. Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch shares similar themes, as well as some of the best action sequences ever to be put on film. But we also took inspiration from the novels of Cormac McCarthy, and from films such as Unforgiven, High Plains Drifter, and The Preposition. Our overarching theme is the death of the West rather than the more conventional The Myth of the West, that is often seen in classic John Wayne films or even in our own Red Dead Revolver, although we watch a lot of classic westerns too. That said, one thing we worked very hard to get right was to deliver gameplay that covered all the classic western moments. Scenes you remember from years of film and television that you'd never experienced as gameplay. Things like Mexican standoffs, using a lasso to capture horses or bandits, driving stagecoaches, taming wild horses, riding with the cavalry, blowing up bridges, hunting buffalo or running away from a wild bear. We wanted this game to go beyond great shootouts and to deliver a complete western experience in gameplay and action as well as atmosphere. Now that the world and the atmosphere of Red Dead Redemption was set, it was time to find a protagonist, someone to really drive the story of the dying West. From a GameSpot interview with Ted Carson in 2010, This details a little bit more about the character of John Marston and the creation of him. GameSpot. Tell us about how the protagonist John Marston came together. What is it about this person that makes him a good fit for this style of game or the center of the story? Ted Carson. What makes Marston the perfect protagonist for this game is that he has a foot in both the old world and the world that was to come. As a former outlaw, Marston is someone who is used to the risks and struggle of the survival on the frontier. But that's a life he left behind when his gang left him for dead after a heist gone wrong. And in the years since, he's worked at being a man of peace, working the land, and raising a family. At the same time, the government was working ruthlessly to bring the outlying territories under the rule of law. Marston's former gang were still out there, and Marston had a history as a ruthless and violent man, just the kind of tool the government needed on the frontier to finally assert the rule of law and order. The combination of good and bad, and of cynicism and idealism, that he represents is what made him as an interesting character. For a game of epic scope, we felt that you needed a nuanced character, as opposed to a straightforward hero or villain, to provide enough interest for the character through the full experience. We are very pleased with how he has evolved as a character. He's a good guy in a very difficult situation, but at the same time, he's a cold-hearted killer.
I hope you learn to cook.
Yes, didn't I say, rather than some prison?
At the beginning of 2008, Rockstar San Diego had originally intended for Red Dead Redemption to be released on PS2 and original Xbox. They also enlisted the aid of Rockstar Toronto to help with artwork for props of the game. Matt Kazan of Rockstar Toronto said, "We began our tenure on Red Dead Redemption at the beginning of 2008, after we finished work on Manhunt 2 and Bully Scholarship Edition. Our primary task at Rockstar Toronto was to redo much of San Diego's earlier artwork on Red Dead Redemption, mostly props. Red Dead Redemption had began as a 6th generation era game, and much of the content we were redoing was artwork geared towards the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. San Diego was very specific on what they wanted with each prop, in many cases requesting that we did not modify the geometry on numerous assets. Other assets were remodeled entirely though. They would provide example images and specific texture sizes, and time allotted for each asset they wanted, to which we delivered. In April of 2008, Rockstar had acquired Mad Dog Software and renamed it Rockstar New England. This studio also assisted in the development of Red Dead Redemption as well as other projects. From the Game Informer article, this details more of Mad Dog's experience as Rockstar New England. Rockstar co-founder and president Sam Houser said that making Mad Dog a Rockstar studio would enhance our core technology and further support our commitment to creating progressive and innovative gaming experiences. Davis, who became studio head of Rockstar New England after the purchase, said in this release, "We're eager to bring our expertise to bear in the character-driven, open-world stories that make Rockstar games so compelling." However, some said that they gradually started to see Mad Dog's workplace culture fade out after the purchase, and that time crunches became more of a prevalent issue within the studio once it was under the Rockstar umbrella. As some developers describe it, they felt that they were expected by other people within the company to prove their dedication to Rockstar through long hours, and that they would be harassed when trying to leave the studio. When it came time for you to leave, it was a lot of just trying to get out without being harassed on the way out the door, one former developer tells Game Informer. The culture just changed, another former developer says. I saw people that previously I really liked become just sycophantic. And then there was the whole bodies and chairs thing, you know. You don't have work to do, but you're going to be here on the weekend because there's some studio head that's going to be walking around. And this doesn't even get into the off-hour stuff where it was just like a hardworking frat house. There is an age and person that is really drawn to that. Rockstar, in my opinion, is well aware of this. The developer is making two main points regarding a specific time in Rockstar New England's history. One is the crunch. Developers describe months-long crunch periods where they'd have to work late into the night and on weekends, sometimes between 12-hour and 16-hour days. Others describe joining a project only to immediately start crunching, or crunching on one project just to be rolled onto another project and having to crunch on that project too. One developer speaking to Game Informer uses the word endless to describe the crunch at the studio. "I mean, it was just ridiculous," one former developer says, describing the development of Red Dead Redemption. "I know that it won Game of the Year and that it was great and satisfying, but the approach to development was it was ridiculous. It took no one's life outside of work into account." Another developer says, "So everyone works really hard for like a week, 2 weeks, but then when the milestone ended, they're just like, well, let's try and preemptively fix the things that we know that they're going to say. So we'll just keep crunching until we get word back." And then we wouldn't get word back for 6 more weeks or something like that. So people were kind of breaking. It was breaking people quickly. Despite ongoing issues going on within the studio of Rockstar New England, development of the game continued. On April 29, 2008, Rockstar released GTA 4, and it sold over 6 million copies on release date.
We all do dumb things. That's what makes us human.
Could be.
From the success of GTA 4, Rockstar had the developmental framework for Red Dead Redemption, and to transition from modern times to the days of old. And more technical aspects were brought into it to bring this concept to life, such as the Rage engine as well as Euphoria to animate and graphically make Red Dead Redemption. The blueprint for these tools were already there from GTA 4, and now the job was to tweak and improve them for the wild western world.
And you can't go across the bridges so good. You without the visa.
In the GameSpot interview with Ted Carson about the technical aspects of the game, GameSpot. The duo of Rage, Rockstar internal engine, and Euphoria, an animation system from Natural Motion seen in games like The Force Unleashed, combined to make Grand Theft Auto 4 look and feel very natural, in terms of graphics and the way things moved in the game. Can you tell us in layman's terms what sort of improvements you've made to that tech during the development of Redemption? The immediately noticeable improvements as well as the more subtle ones?
And what Euphoria is it's a system that allows us to give our characters biomechanical AI. It literally infuses them with a central nervous system, a brain and a spinal cord and a nervous system and even muscles that allow them to act by reflex. So as Adam throws some stormtroopers up here, what you'll see is they'll try to protect themselves. They know that they're being thrown kind of into empty space there and that they're about to fall to their deaths unless they can grab onto some of these beams. So they'll actually try and grab on, they'll try and grab onto one another as well. And this is all simulation based. None of this is being driven by animation, which is, again, really cutting edge technology here.
Ted Carson. When we first saw Natural Motion's technology, we felt that it represented the future of character physics for any shooter, and we had to have a system like that in our games. Natural Motion provides us with a physically based character performance system that we have tightly integrated into Rage's proprietary physics engine. Instead of using canned animations, heat injury and death reactions can now be accomplished entirely with a physics engine simulation. While staggering and falling, characters will realistically collide with nearby props and tumble down slopes. Because of its tight integration with Rage physics rather than a third-party physics package, we're able to leverage all the benefits that our own highly optimized physics engine provides. For Red Dead Redemption, we invested a great deal of effort into creating a natural-looking stagger/fall performance, critical to dramatic and unique gunshot reactions in a classic Western environment. Instead of fighting to maintain upright balance like characters in GTA 4, characters who get knocked over will ride the momentum of the impact, like a real stuntman would. When colliding with the environment, the resulting reaction is not just physical, but performance-based. For example, glancing impacts with walls use true body mechanics to spin the character away, flip over a railing, fall down the stairs, get dragged by a horse, or whatever the environment calls for. Also new to Red Dead Redemption are body part-specific gunshot reactions that were created specifically for this game. Characters will react differently to gunshots in their gut, back, legs, arms, and torso. Characters who are suffering from a gut injury will physically crawl away from their attacker until eventually they bleed out. You can shoot their legs as they crawl away, and the legs will lose strength. Even horses have physical death behaviors in Red Dead Redemption to mimic stunt horses from Western films. When they fall, they raise their heads to avoid the ground, and a realistic tendon simulation keeps their hind legs in anatomically accurate poses. Our proprietary animation tools provide us with the ability to dynamically mix and match natural motion behaviors, and tightly integrate natural motion behaviors with the game engine like never before.
My name's Phil, I work for Central Motion Capture. I'm the mocap supervisor. We're based at Pinewood Studios, and we're here today in Sparsholt to capture horses. When we're marking up the horses, we're using approximately 74 markers. On the rider we've got 44, and we're using 52 cameras to capture that. They're all configured on 3 different levels to capture high movement and low movement with the rider sort of jumping off, and later on we've got some battle scenes as well.
Overhauling the potential processing power of Rage allowed the game to create a high level of detail, including realistic animations and detailed textures. The potential power of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 experienced through the development kits motivated the team to begin development, and to create a game that could fully render the countryside, which was difficult to achieve on previous hardware. Hauser wanted to make a game that was as to the countryside as Grand Theft Auto was to the city. With the possibility of creating this open countryside now available, it was important to fill the world so it would be active even when the player wasn't in a town or settlement. Continuing the Game Fan Mag interview with Christian Cantamesa, he details how the ecosystem was very important in keeping the world alive. Game Fan Mag. How do you balance keeping the aesthetic authentic, but still make it interesting from a gameplay standpoint? Christian Cantamesa. Creating a huge open space and then making it beautiful and believable and full of things to do were the biggest challenges we faced in the making of Red Dead Redemption. But the ways we solved these challenges are now some of the game's greatest strengths. First, we had to squeeze as much processing power as possible from the consoles using our Rage engine, in order to create a high level of detail over massive distances. And we also use that power to deliver the finest details.
You know, the next consoles are coming out, right? And the middleware is not going to work. Renderware is not good anymore, right? And we need to be independent. We had to build a whole new game engine, which is Rage, right? The Rockstar Advanced Graphics engine, which I was really lucky and got to kind of work at the beginning. I got off the plane from being at Rockstar Vienna, trying to get Max Payne ports done. And it's like, EA just brought renderware, we need our own engine, do it, right? So we had just brought Rockstar San Diego, Angel, who had an amazing exporter. They had great engineers, great engineering. But they were on Maya, right? North were on Max. And North wrote all the gameplay scripts, right? And I think, Angel, it was just visual based, or a different way of doing, right? The scripting, and the art pipelines are different. Anyway.
Not only do our characters and environments look and behave realistically, but telegraph wires sway in the wind, and puddles will pool and then dry after a storm. We then had to find ways to fill these open spaces between towns with the right amount of action. We did that partly by creating a living ecosystem full of animals. With this new created world, there needed to be a unique score added, not only to be able to see the landscape of the West, but be able to hear it too. Rockstar had musicians Billy Elm and Woody Jackson who collaborated to make 200 tracks for the game over the span of 15 months beginning in 2008. The main score and the following album were both recorded and mixed in Jackson's studio, Electro-Vox Recording Studios in Los Angeles, and were mastered at Capitol Studios. From TheGuardian.com, talking about the Red Dead Redemption soundtrack. For Rockstar's soundtrack supervisor, Ivan Pavlovich, the challenge of scoring Red Dead was always the sheer scale of the thing. It was apparently just too darn big. Through the Grand Theft Auto series, the publisher used licensed music of the time being portrayed, such as 2002's GTA Vice City, where players jumped back into the 80s by hearing all the hits of the time while playing.
Brother? Oh yeah? And what's that? You're green, and my dead brother's white lady.
But the world of Red Dead Redemption was the largest Rockstar had created at the time, and with players likely to spend hours riding in the desert, plains, or mountain forests between settlements. It was also set in the early 1900s, which rather limits the options in terms of licensed music. There was no way we could really use licensed music as we've done in the past, contends Pavlovich, so we'd figured we need to write an original score.
Rockstar tipped their hat to the masters who created the Western music genre, while re-envisioning it for the 21st century. The goal was to complement the visually stunning game world with a score that is equally authentic.
With no licensed music really being available for the time, composition was the only option. And in an article on Game of Sutra, Myths, Mavericks, and Music of Red Dead, Woody Jackson talks more about that process. Red Dead Redemption takes place in 1911. Was it of interest to you to incorporate period music in the score? Woody Jackson. I went back and listened to the music from the period, and while there's Jimmy Crack Corn, that's basically it.
And when he'd ride in the afternoon, I'd follow after with a hickory broom, the pony being rather shy. When bitten by the blue-tailed fly, Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care, Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care.
We're talking pre-show tunes. There was no Western sound, but 60s Psych has become the Western sound. If you listen to spaghetti westerns, know that music was authentic to the period. We will now return to the Guardian article, where Pavlovich discusses how he found Billy Elm and Woody Jackson. Pavlovich started scoping out potential musicians to accomplish this task. The search ended with a cult band hailing from Tucson, Arizona. We were actually turned on to Friends of Dean Martinez by their manager, Pavlovich explains. We started listening to them and thought, wow, these guys can do a great modern interpretation of classic Western music. So we talked with the group's co-founder, Bill Elm, and the relationship grew from there. But the duo that came on board the Red Dead project was Bill Elm and sometime member Woody Jackson, a multi-instrumentalist who worked with everyone from Ry Cooder to the Smashing Pumpkins. And most importantly perhaps, both musicians had experience with movie soundtracks. Elm said, "The obvious difference is that film music is written to fit a finite scene. Whereas with the video game, we're working in 5-minute loops. It's really wide open, but also very hard, because there are all sorts of things happening with layers. If someone shoots someone, suddenly the music changes. So we have to think, okay, does this work over the top of that? Also, the big thing with the game is, you don't know how long you're going to be staying in that mood. You can't state too much. It's kind of like implying a mood. It's a balance between having it interesting, but not so much to get sick of it, because you could be riding that horse for 15 minutes.
The biggest challenge was finding a way of recording a score that could adapt according to decisions the player makes. So instead of songs, they composed stems.
We had to devise a method by which those stems could be used practically anywhere in the game and interact with other stems.
There's also a difference in terms of commitment. While Jackson said he'll spend 12 weeks at most on a movie score, he and Elm worked on Red Dead for over 15 months. To ensure seamless sound, then the duo decided on a set criteria. The whole score is composed in A minor at 130 beats per minute. It sounds incredibly restrictive, but as is often the case with creative limitations, there's also a sense of empowerment. It seemed like the hardest problem at the beginning, but it was actually really freeing, says Elm. Just learning how different elements work together, it was very different from making a band record just letting the instruments and the sound fill the space. Without having to think about writing better chord changes, we were just letting the organic sound develop.
The team decided to create all the music at 130 beats per minute in A minor, so that the game engine can play stems on top of one another and create music on the fly.
If you jump on a horse, a bass line kicks in. When you start getting chased, timpanis roll in and big fuzz guitars roll in.
Due to the seemingly restrictive composition, this was a chance for Elm and Jackson to explore instrumentation. Each of the areas of the game needed to sound different, not only to differentiate from them visually, but in audio as well. Jackson said, "When the game starts, it's in the desert section. So we've got whistles, some violins, a harmonica, some guitars. It provides a real sense of peacefulness."
Vibrato. Very fast vibrato. Combination of those two give the unique spaghetti western sound.
Then you go to Mexico where we have more horns.
Y la kit del drum. Y la trompeta con la kit del drum.
And when you head north, that was a little bit of a struggle. We changed it a couple of times. We wanted it to really relate to the frontier, but to be totally different. This apparently led to some of the more avant-garde experiments.
Bill and Woody were especially creative about finding interesting sounds for the games. They searched high and low to find the perfect instruments and sounds.
I even used a heartbeat, continues Jackson. We were having a baby girl, and I recorded the heartbeat, and used that as a drum beat. I thought that would be kind of different. The people at the hospital thought I was crazy. I was there with my iPhone saying, "Just put the scanner on her stomach again." Even when mastering the soundtrack, the duo managed to steep the process in musical history, selecting the Capitol Studios in Hollywood, where Frank Sinatra once recorded.
I'm in the autumn of the year. I think I swallowed a shot glass.
They were showing us the echo chambers beneath the floor that Les Paul made, which are 50 feet under the ground, says Jackson. It literally looks like a video game where you need to crawl into a hole and down a ladder. They wouldn't let us go down there. It's too far and too dangerous. But when we were doing the Widmore soundtrack, I was like, put the chamber on, and we did. It sounded great.
Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie.
Game of Sutra. Morricone's Western scores have informed numerous game soundtracks, from Wild Arms to Afro Samurai. You've mentioned that you own over 400 scores by Morricone. How has this fascination with the composer aided in developing a sound for Red Dead Redemption? Woody Jackson. There were a bunch of different references for Red Dead Redemption, though to me it's hard not to have a Morricone. I'm obsessed with that period from 66 to 71. The first trailer for the game came more from gritty, simple violin pieces, but over time it seemed appropriate to bring in the psych guitars. I found a German guitar at Ventura Music here in Los Angeles that had the sound and perfect tremolo. Many guitars in the 1960s had a bass cut switch, which would cut all the bass out, giving that anemic, thin sound. But the signal-to-noise ratio on those guitars can be a problem. The German guitar somehow had more signal to noise, and it had that sound. I literally went home after finding the instrument and wrote the theme for Red Dead Redemption. There's a certain beauty to having a job that allows for searching for a sound, finding it, and using it.
This is the guitar I used on most of it. It's an ugly guitar, but it makes a pretty sound.
Rockstar not only had composers Woody Jackson and Bill Elm working on music for the game, but also contracting artists such as Jose Gonzalez. This is from an interview in 2015 with Acid Stag. Along with Walter Mitty, your music had a lot of crossovers in games, movies, TV shows, and even commercials. Do you enjoy being associated with these brands and titles? Jose Gonzalez. Yeah, the commercials, it's usually them approaching me if I want my music on there. And sometimes I don't, depending on the brand and the product. It's really fun thinking that someone is sitting with their client trying to augment a feeling if they choose one of my songs or a Junip song. It's such a compliment. Same with video games. Red Dead Redemption was fun. I haven't played it, but it looks like they gave me a good theme for riding in the desert. It's great though. A little more detail on the process of creating the iconic song Far Away came from an Australian Rolling Stones article called High Scores: How Game Music Turned Entertainment into Art. When the Red Dead team reached out to me, I felt like I didn't have the time, but I came up with the idea to use a Junip song and sort of make a cover of myself. I didn't have lyrics for the song yet, but they gave me some key words. I didn't see any videos or any animation, but I knew loosely what the game was about. But it really was just keywords. Lonely, cowboy, he laughs, trying to recall their prompts. A character riding in the desert, some fighting, some family issues. So then I started writing the lyrics. I retuned the guitar very, very low, so that the E string was tuned down to B, to make it sound even more doomy, enigmatic, says Gonzalez. And it's one of the few songs I recorded with my own tape recorder, the same type of tape recorder Paul Simon used to use. I asked Jose what his first time riding into Mexico and the game was like, as the musician who made the moment. Quote, they launched it and pretty quickly people started posting on YouTube. And it wasn't until then I finally saw the moment where the music came on. So I didn't get that epic moment myself, but I did come to understand how many people found it so moving. Cinematic. Like you're in a movie yourself.
Step in front of a runaway train.
With the visual and audio aspects of the world of Red Dead Redemption now in progress, all that was needed was to find the right actors and voice talent to portray these characters. In December of 2008, the search began, and Rockstar held auditions for characters. In early 2009, Rockstar had found the talent to portray the characters from Red Dead Redemption, and their experiences revealed that this was nothing like most of them had done before, but the combination of motion capture as well as voice work was needed to bring the characters to life. The first interview is from 2011, talking about the events of 2009, with actress Francesca Galeas, who played Luisa Fortuna. Retro player. How did you land your role in Red Dead Redemption and how did you prepare for that role? Francesca Galeas. Well, I called in for an audition for the role of Luisa, which was asking for a Salma Hayek badass chick with an accent. I practiced doing a version of Mama's accent, and when I went to the audition I wore leather pants, boots, and really got into character. I really let myself have fun that day, and since it was close to the beach, I drove around Venice after. It was a great day. I got a call from my agent and booked the job. Retro player. Take us through a typical day of the recording process for Red Dead Redemption. This is the fun part. During the motion capture process, I'd head over to the studio in the morning and get dressed up in this blue wetsuit type outfit with white Velcro balls all over my body and a camera on my head. I had to say Mr. Marston every day we shot. It was very spacey and sweaty. We'd run through the scenes and shoot. One of my favorite scenes is where I'm talking about my father.
This is about the people. My father died for his people. For these men and for millions like them, that they may be free.
While there are guns and money, there won't be any freedom, Luisa.
And another where I throw a gun to one of my men. I hope that made it in the game.
Thank God you have come. That wretched animal de Santa has been sent to oversee a massacre in El Sepulcro. Come, we must stop him and finally kill that vermin and all of Allende's other followers.
Retro player. Luisa Fortuna at first seems like a very passive character in Red Dead Redemption, but eventually her visceral passion for the revolution in Mexico comes through. Did you as an actor enjoy that double-sided quality to Luisa? Luisa had many qualities. and I was really happy to play a strong woman who could save her lover, lead her men, and shoot a gun. Louisa is very smart and emotional at the same time. She'd make a great film character. I'd love to play her. Here is an interview with Retro Player interviewing Steve J. Palmer, who played Bill Williamson.
Hey! That pig-headed punk up there? That's my kid. Now that I've got your attention, even if he was gay, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because love is love, you little shit stain.
How did you land your role in Red Dead Redemption? Almost 2 years later and I've still no idea, since there was no callback for me. I remember it was a 6 p.m. audition back in December 2008 over in Santa Monica. I was coming from another gig performance in Studio City. It was dark, raining, cold, and just about 1 week away from Christmas.
So it was like the week or so before Christmas, December of 2008. And I was at another performing job. It was a stage show, and I was on the loading dock. I was going to be done in like 10 or 15 minutes. And I had time to check my phone, and my agent had called. My agent had said, hey, listen, are you able to get down to Santa Monica, like down by the beach? In LA, that can be an hour drive depending on traffic. And I was coming from like Studio City. Can you get to Santa Monica within the hour? And I was like, no, there's no way. And it was December. So it's like the LA, Southern California rainy season. And like 15 minutes prior to him calling, it just a wall of water was just down. God.
I had learned from my agent maybe only 20 minutes prior that was for an untitled video game.
That was it. It's a Western video. I didn't know what company. That's all. It's a video game, something like a Wild West video game. I was like, okay. And it's not that I wasn't excited about it, but I had a million other things going on. And it's like, okay, don't wreck your Honda Accord into a ditch. Get there safely.
I got there and just remember seeing tons of actors, all shapes, ages, and sizes. I waited almost 40 minutes before I was seen. They were really backed up.
Holding it. But I got there, and I was 15 or 16 minutes late. Maybe more close to 20. I wasn't going to make it on time, but I got there as quick as I could. It didn't matter because the line was out the door and they were already an hour behind. So by that account, I was
early.
So I was like, oh, I could have got some food or something. But anyway.
And then I went into a room with the casting director who was setting up the camera to put my audition on tape. And to my right was another long fold-out table with Western-themed costume pieces and props. I just kept thinking to myself, hot damn, I've never used props in an audition outside of theater. What the heck is this game?
Finally, when I got into the room and the person running the camera, they had all these these prop tables, the fold-out tables, elongated, lined up, and they had all these Western props on. And I thought it was interesting because I was like, oh my God, we're using props? I was like, that is usually a no-no in any like major film. You don't audition in costume. You don't bring props. Yeah. It's like, I haven't auditioned with the props since like my senior year of high school when I did theater in high school. And I was laughing because, nah, don't, we're doing it unconventionally. He's like, no, we want you to embrace this. And they had everything. They had different hats. They had holsters. They had bandoliers. They had boots. If you want, and they're like, try stuff on. We want to see how you move. It was all about movement.
So I simply had a blast. Most fun audition I've ever had, and that's the truth. Actually, that's probably how I booked the gig. I had the time of my life and they saw that. However, I didn't know that until almost a month later. After not hearing squat all through Christmas and pretty much forgetting about it, my agent called the second week of January 2009 and said, hey, remember that video game audition? Yeah, they want to book you as the bad guy.
And I already moved on. I did a couple other auditions, and I got a call from my agent. It's like, Steve, remember before Christmas, I sent you down to Santa Monica in the rain for that last minute audition for that video game thing? I go, yeah. I go, whatever happened to that? Nothing. I said, and I asked him, I said, oh, are they finally doing callbacks now? Or He's like, no callbacks. He said, you booked the bad guy. Oh, no. And I was like, what? And there were no call. It was just like, we did it, and a few weeks went by. I had forgotten about it. And then it was like, hey, remember that thing? You got it. I had never once heard anything Rockstar. I mean, I knew Rockstar did. I played GTA 5, but I didn't know I didn't know the company that was doing this game. I just knew Western Video Game. It could have been a Nintendo thing. Yeah. I had no idea. Another 2 or 3 days went by. And then I started getting an email, and then and I would see the email and the logo and email Rocks, and I'm like, Rock? Oh, and then it just hit me as far as what it is.
How did you prepare for the role? Did Rockstar already have an idea on what they wanted your character to sound like? I pretty much went into production with the character I developed in that 40-minute wait for the audition. And Rod Edge, our director for the game cinematics, loved it. Like the character Bill Williamson, I'm a big burly guy at 6'3", 232 pounds, long straggly hair, bushy beard. I also have a slightly higher register of voice than someone of my physical stature, so I was used to that. I think what also helped, and what might have been a factor of me booking the job other than simply having fun at auditions, was the fact that I apparently looked just like Bill in their early concept workings. Did you get a chance to see any concept work of your character prior to recording? Not at all. Everyone else did, I think, but me. Here's the funny thing about that. When you come into contact with Bill in the game, if you notice, he's always at both a distance and a higher elevation than John Marston. Whether it be on a cliff, atop Fort Mercer, or a stagecoach. Like it's a power stance of domination and control.
You must think I was born yesterday. You always did think I was an idiot. You just walk away now, John. I didn't kill you before, but I sure as shit will now.
Get yourself down here, Bill.
Well, when we filmed the voiceover for the motion capture for those cinematics, Rod and the team actually had set pieces built, or at least the basic frameworks constructed to best simulate the scenes. So I'd be climbing up long ladders or steps onto these high wooden platforms, while Rod, our producer Francesca, Rob, Anthony, Brad, and Frank were all on ground level. Tell us about the recording process of Red Dead Redemption. It was fun. Doing the voiceover along with the mocap was much more organic than one might imagine acting-wise. And because of how we had basic set pieces or framework pieces set out on the studio floor, with the production mainly on one side, one could almost play it like a rehearsal in a black box theater. And that's how I approached it in many instances.
One of the first things we did is the opening in the first Red Dead, where he gets on the train and it's the train ride. And a lot of people don't know this, so I'm going to tell you this now. In the opening scene of Red Dead Redemption, with the opening credits, and that the two older ladies are gossiping about politics and Governor Nate Johns, and John singing in front of them, and that's where you first see Bonnie McFarlane and the preachers talking to the young girl Jenny, and you see Bonnie does it, but she kind of gets up. Well, Kimberly Irian, who played Bonnie, had yet been cast, and there was no one to be Bonnie, so I did the motion capture for Bonnie McFarlane on the train at the beginning of Red Dead. That's me.
Bill Williamson, while rarely seen, is the focal point of Red Dead Redemption in many ways. How do you view his character and his relationship with the protagonist, John Marston? If you take the original gang characters of John Marston, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and Dutch Vanderlyn, they're really 4 different limbs of a single anatomy. I think that Bill and John represented the siblings of that particular family, as Dutch was more of a parental figure. Bill is vehemently envious of John, because at some point their parallels split, or forked in some fashion. In the game, it's hinted that each gang member at one point or another had their way with Abigail. But in the end, she chose Marston. They grew into something new, something in effect beautiful out of something ugly and scarred. John was a moral anchor to Bill, much like how Abigail eventually became a moral anchor to John, albeit in a more delicate subtext. Once John left that brotherhood dynamic, Bill begins to tailspin out of control. Not that he had much control to begin with. Bill pretty much is John's living mirror of what if. Both dealt early hardships and unfortunate circumstance with what life threw at him, yet both found a solace in the guidance of Dutch. Each man took away a different interpretation of the lesson. As John grew into a man who conquered by achieving, Bill fell into a man who achieved simply by conquering.
I had with the script they gave me, and I had my own ideas of. I had my own ideas in my head of what I thought at the time that would make Bill tick. There were certain kind of impulsive beats in my head of what I thought would set Bill off and make him the way he was. And I think it had to do with jealousy towards John. And to pretty much understand that he did consider John a brother, but he was jealous of John. And the specifics of why he was jealous in my head is like, is he jealous? Did he have feelings for Abigail? Did what was he jealous of? And but I think the one thing that did remain is that he was jealous of John because of the direction of the majority of Dutch van der Linde's affection and admiration.
Yeah.
With the addition of the motion capture, these were not voiceover sessions where one could simply mail in their performance. You had to connect. Anthony truly did that every time, every take. He wasn't the only one. Rob had this phone book-sized script that he had to memorize for all of 2009, and I'll never forget seeing it for the first time. When a group of us were all standing around the craft service table, one could have used the damn thing to interrogate a criminal suspect without leaving a single bruise. As daunting as a memorization task that started out being, Rob nailed it in the end. To me, he had the most natural character, and it's no doubt the character of John Marston works and succeeds so flawlessly. Guys like Brad Carter and Frank Noon, who played Armadillo's deputies Jonah and Eli respectively, were just plain fun to have around. It was a great balance on everyone's part of taking the job at hand quite seriously, yet not taking yourself too seriously.
Sometimes it's funny, but sometimes just because of scheduling, like 90% you see Bill Williamson, it's me, but there are a couple of days where I was unable to be there, and they got sometimes they get someone in to do kind of background movement, but it's like 99% of it, it's us. But I'll give you an example. There's a scene in the original Red Dead. It's during the mission, Spare the Rod, Spoil the Bandit. It's the mission at Ridgewood Farms. And it's his second encounter with Bill after getting shot at the fort. And they at the end of the gunfight, Bill gets away, but they capture Norman Deep. Well, the actor who played Norman, James Carroll, couldn't be there that day. So that was me doing his motion capture. And that's Brad Carter riding me bareback going, squeal, boy, squeal. And we had to film that 8 times because every one of us kept laughing. And we just, because it looked, when you got someone in body spandex with the ping pong balls and another guy with ping pong balls riding them, it just looks like, basically, it looks like the scene in Deliverance, but in Tron. It looked very weird. And I remember Rob and Anthony just kept laughing. We all were laughing. It was just hysterical.
We will now look at an interview from Patty Plays with Benjamin Byron Davis and his experiences working on the game. In this clip, he talks about Nastas and how his voice was used for the character.
And I'm sure we'll get into Nastas. I don't know that would fly these days, and I think that the truth of that character and that performance was that it was because of the virtue of my size. Nastas was 6.5 feet tall, so they hired me. While I was playing Dutch, they had me also play Nastas.
Yeah.
And my understanding was that it was that any of the work that I did in that role was going to be
dubbed over.
It wasn't going to be used. Yeah, they were going to hire somebody to do it. But so I was doing the best, and as I tried the most dignified as I could in that performance, just for the benefit of the other actors in the scenes, because they were great scenes. I mean, and he was a lovely character. I enjoyed. I think the issue of representation is more front of mind now than it was a decade ago, and that's entirely a good thing. So but I never considered that work was ever going to make it to the game. and then I guess they just the producers ended up liking the performance that I delivered, and they didn't want to replace it. So that worked out okay for me.
Easy, but it hasn't been easy for anyone, Nastas. Why, I knew a man in Yale whose father once shot 18 natives in one afternoon out in Wyoming. Oh, the man was quite traumatized. he took to lying with choir boys.
For a wise man, you are a very stupid man, mister.
In this clip, Davis talks more about Dutch's character.
I learned more about Dutch playing the game than I knew about Dutch when I played Dutch in the first one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So what I knew about Dutch in the first one, and I had been, and it's why I kind of felt like, okay, this guy could be I didn't even know that he was going to be at the end of the game. I didn't know where in the game any of this was happening. I had no sense of any of it. I was hopeful. I was like, this seems pretty climactic. It seems like this guy is a big deal. But all I really had to go on in the first pass was he used to be the leader of a gang. He is ridiculously well read. And he's a little crazy. He's gone crazy. He's lost his mind. And that was enough to go on. And then I had this voice that I did, which is not far from my own kind of voice, but that I had done for a short film that I had brought into the audition, which I think got me the part. And so that was it. So it was finding that voice and finding that guy, and that was it.
Manic sort. You know, gentlemen, this man here, oh, he married a whore. Used to ride with us. We all had her. Oh, but he married her. And you know that makes him a better man than us. He's a better man.
Here Davis talks about his experience in motion capture.
Of what performance capture was, because I didn't, who knew what it was? Like you're wearing this sort of rig on your head with a camera on it, and motion capture I was familiar with. I knew what that was. But I've got 6 shooters on, and I'm wearing cowboy boots. I've got, it's like, okay.
Here Davis talks about the infamous cliff scene between John and Dutch.
And that last scene that Dutch has on the cliff, when I got to see it, it was, and I had to play the game to see it. It took 28 hours to finally get to see it. But not that I'm complaining. but it's a very odd thing to see this world that you imagine rendered. But that was a lesson to me. I still have the pages from that day somewhere. I was supposed to shred them, but I have saved them. They are cherished. But there's a question on the top of the page, which is, what is his injury? Which we never quite figured out. I knew that I had an injured arm, but I didn't know what it was from. I think the instinct is it had something to do with the Gatling gun. Or
the Gatling gun, yeah.
But the question I didn't have there was, what's the temperature? Because I had assumed, in my mind when we were playing it, I'm thinking like it's a cave that we're coming out like out of a Bugs Bunny cartoon or a Roadrunner cartoon. I'm picturing sort of Monument Valley, desert, vista, and then when I see it, it was so at odds with it's cold.
We can't always fight nature, John. We can't fight change. Can't fight gravity. We can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight.
Then give up, Dutch.
I mean, I don't know what I was very proud of my work on in that scene in particular, and it was a weird thing, even when I watch it now, because every blink that he does in that scene, that's me. The little random eye movements, that's me. And it's remarkable.
I just want to very quickly touch on, because I saw this scene again today and it affected me, is that scene on the cliff, the change speech. The fact that John says, well, I guess I'm going to have to shoot you, and Dutch throws himself off. He spares John having to kill him, which that really hit me hard today when I kind of realized that.
We agree on that. We agree on that entirely. There's another point to it, and it's something that I would say all the time when I'm trying to find my way into Dutch's headspace, which is no one kills Dutch but Dutch.
Nice.
But it's very interesting. Yes, not only does he spare John that pain, he warns John to get out of here. That it's not going to end with me.
Yeah.
They're not going to be, the government is not going to be satisfied. They will not. If you keep playing their game, you're going to be, it's going to go. Dutch knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Dutch
he knew
understood what was coming.
That there was one more. What John didn't realize was that once he did the government's work, there was still one outlaw left. And the government wouldn't be happy until all the outlaws were dealt with.
Oh, trust me. It looks better in the report that way.
In this clip, Davis proposes a theory as to why Dutch is so close to Beecher's Hope.
Dutch, for all of his bluster about he's going to kill John, never does. And it was always odd to me how close to Beecher's Hope Dutch was. And part of me likes to think that Dutch, I can hear Rod in my head going, it's the stupidest thing. It's not true. It's not possible. But part of me wants to think that Dutch was keeping an eye out for Jack and John. And here this, and that's as far as I'll go.
This is from an interview with Polygon in 2018 with Rob Wiedoff. When Wiedoff landed the role of John Marston, he wasn't consciously searching for a part in a video game, but one night in December, he was sitting down on the couch with his dogs at the end of a long day. Wiedoff's agent called. There was a last-minute audition available across town for an untitled video game project. Would he go?
Oh my goodness, everything about it was kind of weird. First of all, I got a call from my agent who said, I've got a last-minute audition for you. If you can make it, please get over there. It's for an untitled video game project. And I said, well, what is that? What is that? And she said, we don't know. We don't know. But, we kind of went back and forth on it. We decided that it was probably a commercial or a promo thing for a video game that had already been made. Just didn't have a title yet. We didn't know. Nobody knew. But I thought, yeah, I'll get over there.
Unable to come up with an excuse after a trying day, Wiedoff sped across town. What followed was one of the strangest Hollywood encounters he'd ever been a part of. Wiedoff entered the studio where the audition was being held. He was immediately greeted by 30 men dressed as soldiers. The session runner gave him his lines and a basket of laundry. Say the lines and fold the laundry, he was told. Keep it natural. He was rushed, nervous, and didn't have enough time to learn his lines before being thrown in front of a camera for a test. I had no idea what was going on, he says. They filmed the short scene only once, and Wiedoff was allowed to leave. Thinking it very easily could have been a waste of time, he headed home. Both he and his agent had no idea what this was all about, until Wiedoff won the role only a few days later. But Wiedoff is keen to stress the project wasn't what we know as Red Dead Redemption. The character of John Marston wasn't even fully formed, nor the story. With so much work having been put into the game's technical demands, there wasn't much of a character to even explore. The game was a big deal, that much was obvious, but there wasn't much else to go by. The storyline was still being written as we were shooting, so it was impossible to know exactly who this guy was or what he was trying to accomplish.
So in Red Dead Redemption, all you could see were the markers, which are on your joints and wherever they are, where they need to be to make that technology work. But you could see little dots, and you could wave, and you could see your dots waving, and kind of put it together like, okay, that's me. So I never knew what John looked like until the first trailer for Red Dead Redemption came out. I never knew what he looked like.
Whoa.
I never even thought about what he looked like.
Yes.
So that was insane. to see what he looked like and be like, my goodness, all right, so that's the guy that I'm playing. And
That's insane.
Then, of course, you know, they had a whole trailer cut together, and I'm hearing my voice come out of this weird, not me person, and I thought, wow.
Red Dead Redemption was made using performance capture, a technology which has become the norm in big-budget games. Weedoff would stand on set with other actors and perform his scenes in a special suit designed to track the movement of his entire body. It sounds ridiculous, and it is. Weedoff fell out of his depth.
Is that when you hear your own voice, like say for most people, they do their outgoing voicemail message, right? Where they say, hi, this is so-and-so, leave a message, I'll call you back, whatever. And then you listen to it back and you think, oh, I don't sound like that, do I? I sound like that all the time. And so there's that. It's, you hear your own voice and you think, oh, God. And then also because of the performance capture, the first time I played Red Dead Redemption and I took off running, I said out loud to my wife, why did they make him run like that? And then I realized, I made him run like that.
That's amazing. But like, it's so true.
It's awful.
This is from a 2011 interview with Rob Weedoff at the Gaming Liberty. At first, the voice recording was all done at the same time as the motion capture. What you see in the mission scenes and cutscenes was motion capture and voiceover recording at the same time. We wore motion capture suits that were wired up with microphones, batteries, transmitters, and had all the markers where they needed to be to capture our movements. The markers are the little reflective balls that are attached by Velcro, about 40 points on the suit. On top of all that, we wore helmets that held a small camera in front of our faces that would capture our facial expressions. To ensure that there are no shadows on our faces, there were also 2 lights attached as well. Shooting the scenes with all this technology strapped to you took a little getting used to say the least. Rob Weedoff. Voice acting in a booth is very different than acting in front of a camera. Most of the time in a booth you can read your lines and you don't have to move around. When shooting motion capture and recording voices at the same time, there aren't many differences from shooting in front of a regular camera. Obviously, like I mentioned above, you have to wear a special suit for motion capture. Other than that, you have to be off-book just like normal, and you have to remember your marks just like normal. Instead of there being 1 to 2 cameras shooting you at the same time. In motion capture, there are somewhere around 100. The difference with these cameras is that they only see the markers on the suit. It was very cool to play a character in a game that was set in the Old West. I think every guy has wanted to be a cowboy at some point in their life. I was so into that. Even after I put on all the technical gear the first day of shooting, I decided that I'd be better off with a heavy belt that had holsters for my guns. It was going to help me walk like a cowboy. Truthfully, it was to allow me to dress up as much as I could to feel like a real cowboy. I played with those guns more between takes than I ever needed to the whole time shooting the game. I'm not afraid to admit it, I loved every second of it.
Yeah, so, you know, being John for 13 plus years now, John Marston playing him, are there certain aspects of his like personality, some favorite storylines, you know, even just working behind the scenes that you definitely are like your favorite parts of his life?
You know, there are a lot of things too. John is very grumpy, and he's got a reason to be, but he's also very rough, and he's very tough. And of course, I want to believe that I would be that.
He's very matter of fact, which I like that he doesn't suffer fools like that. Especially in the first one, the dialogue, some of the stuff he says to people is your inner monologue. He's saying it out loud. Like when someone's being dumb, he lets them know right out of the gate.
He's feisty. It's
you're
great.
Dumb, man. Yeah, which I love. I love that.
And you. Oh, I done seen enough of your hide around here, friend.
I think there's some school children down the way you can go and frighten.
Oh, hardy fucking hard.
That is, so it's such a great character to be able to play. You know, you're not afraid of anything or anyone. And I kept being reminded by the director when I would have questions. He would just say, just remember, John Marston is not afraid of anything or anyone. And I thought,
can I see the boots, gringo? I think you can see them from where you're standing just fine, senor. Take off the boots, Americano. As you wish.
But so, you know, as far as the things that I really like, though, I mean, this is something that I don't know that I learned. I don't know personally if I really knew what this was until I had a wife and kids, right? And I know that what's important to me is the happiness and well-being of my wife and kids. And John, how could he know what was the right thing for him to do or how to behave? He didn't have, like, he wasn't grounded with strong parental figures that taught him, really, this is what morals are, and this is what this means, and this is why it's important, and whatever. But once he found out what it was that he felt was his own purpose, there was not a thing that would stop him from fulfilling what he felt was his responsibility. And I really, really admire that, because that's what I think I want to be for my family. So that, again, that's something that I didn't even really know was important to me until I had a wife and family. Kids, now that I do, I get it. And so I respect that a lot in John.
That's a nice way to greet somebody. Why don't I get a warm and tender embrace?
In February 2009, Red Dead Redemption was finally announced with the initial release date of fall of that year. Although the announcement of Red Dead Redemption was an exciting one, and a great development moving forward, there were still issues within Rockstar regarding disputes between the studio and developers. A couple months later, in April of 2009, the case that was originally filed on August 21, 2006, Garrett Flynn vs. Angel Studios Inc. / Rockstar Games, was settled out of court, with Rockstar paying $2.75 million in total, $27,500 per person. Rockstar was still denying the accusations at the time of the case, but ended up still paying the amount. In a press release issued after the settlement, Rockstar Games refuted the lawsuit's claims, as quoted here. Angel denies the allegations in the lawsuit and admits no liability or wrongdoing in the settlement. The settlement document, which was obtained by Joystick, also spells out Rockstar's reasons for settling the suit, saying as quote, "Further litigation would be protracted and expensive for all parties." Unsurprisingly, the company also contested it in the settlement that ruling against it was relatively unlikely for a number of reasons. From the Joystick article, that said, when a multi-billion-dollar corporation settles a suit with its employees out of court and awards them nearly $3 million in compensation, that's quite a statement unto itself. Regardless of the great lengths at which the final court settlement goes to deny that claim, we've contacted Rockstar Games for comment and haven't heard back as of publishing. On May 6, 2009, the first trailer was released. This was met with hype towards the game and the beginning of marketing for it as well.
Well, we've lived here for 30 years now. Came here from the east. For 10 years, we fought the Indians. Tough men.
This is the land of opportunity, mister!
A few days later, Dan Houser interviewed with IGN to discuss some of the aspects from the trailer, as well as more about the game. This is from an IGN article on May 5, 2009. IGN. During the beginning stages of production, Rockstar had to decide which elements from Revolver fit in the drastically changed structure of the game world in Redemption. We loved the mechanic of Deadeye and thought it was executed very nicely for the time. So we wanted to keep that and keep the Wild West theme. But beyond that, I think that there's not much that's being kept. I think we came to see Red Dead Revolver as being about the kind of myths and iconic images of the Old West. The cowboy with the scar on his face, the Indian, or the iconic set pieces put together in a somewhat linking story. But it was really about trying to show off these very iconic myths about the Old West. Then what we wanted to do with Red Dead Redemption was to do something that felt more like the reality of the Old West. Story-wise, we felt that there was no point in linking them because it wouldn't make any sense. The eventual decision to move forward into production on Redemption had a lot to do with the emerging technology at the dawning of the current console generation. We were just starting to get wind of dev kits and ideas of what would become the 360, what would become the PS3. We were also beginning to get wind of some of the specs on that, and thinking about the things we'd like to do on the new hardware. Obviously, one of the things that we decided we'd love to do is a game where countryside was rendered beautifully, because that was very difficult on a PS2 to make these big open environments that look fantastic. We'd done it in a couple of different games, but we never made a game that was to the countryside as GTA was to the city. This is Dan Houser talking about the character of John Marston. He's a reformed bank robber and member of an outlaw gang, who left that world and started to raise his family in a more orthodox surroundings, then gets sucked back into that world by forces outside of his control to go and look for a character who used to be in the gang with him, in a different part of the world he doesn't know. As you play through the game, you start to uncover more about his backstory, his family life, and these characters that he's looking for and how their relationships are entwined and what went down between them. I can't give you too much more without giving away major plot spoilers, but the setup for him is that he's a guy who's tried and for a few years succeeded in changing his life around and is coming to see that that is impossible. IGN. This is being built out as a much more ambitious and expansive project than Red Dead Revolver, which was more stage-based, humorous look at a Western-themed game. Now that we know about Redemption's design, what about its tone? With such a wide range of potential influences from cinema to literature, from where is Rockstar pulling its inspiration? Dan Houser. We didn't want it to be pompous and overly serious. We wanted it to feel like a representation of all the madness and insanity that the American West seemed to have in itself quite realistically. The Wild Bunch has got an amazing tone, so if we got anywhere close to that, we would be honored. We wanted it to feel serious, but at the same time, the characters are not depressives. It's not a Bergman film. They're not sitting there wondering about the meaning of life. They're outlaws trying to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to move forward, and get what they're going to get. It's not trying to be wacky, it's trying to be raw and energized. At the same time, that world, particularly when you get to the kind of meeting this more primitive Wild West meeting America of the earliest 20th century, was already becoming very modern and in some ways very similar to contemporary society. The meaning of those two is surreal anyway. We wanted to try and capture that as the thing that we were most interested in focusing on. Red Dead Redemption also had a lot of skepticism due to Westerns not being deemed as a major selling genre. But with the success of Red Dead Revolver in the past, Rockstar was willing to make the gamble. IGN. Our concern has to be that Westerns haven't performed that well in a video game marketplace. Dan Houser. Plenty of people wish to pontificate that Western games don't sell, and that the entire games industry loves to imagine itself as a business analyst, and every business analyst seems to want to be a game designer. But the games, as they come out, to my mind, given their limitations, have sold very well. Revolver was a successful product for us, and we were pleased with it. We have to constantly push ourselves forward and are not sitting there going, what sells? Well, people love games with Space Marines, and people love games with zombies, therefore zombie Space Marines. That's exactly what we don't do. We're constantly trying to do new things and not repeat ourselves, and always do something a bit different. As much of our research was spent with people going down to Washington and looking at National Photographic Archives as was spent watching Westerns. It was interesting stuff, and it hasn't been done well in the game. So for us, it was a game worth making. We can't just sit there, look at the market, and predict what's selling now, and therefore make games. That's never how we operated. On May 26, 2009, Red Dead Redemption was delayed until 2010. But the delay wasn't the only setback during development, but also a significant layoff that happened in Rockstar New England in June of 2009. This is from a Game Informer article talking a little bit more about the layoff. Rockstar New England went through a sizable layoff. Sources within the studio told Kotaku that at least 10% of the studio had been let go. This included the entirety of the quality assurance department, as Rockstar shifted all of its QA to a dedicated studio. Members of the studio's art team and other departments were also let go. At the time of the layoffs, outlets reported that Rockstar would help those affected find new jobs. According to 3D artist Tim Samuels, who lost his job during this round of layoffs, that didn't actually happen. He also says that he wasn't told why he was being let go. Due to the timing of the cuts, before the release of Red Dead Redemption, which was the last project that Samuels and others affected by the layoffs had been working on, none of them received bonuses for their work. We didn't even get a copy of the game, Samuels says. That layoff was pretty devastating to a lot of people in the studio, and stuck with me even after I had left, says one of the developers who spoke to Game Informer anonymously. It never really made much sense to me why it happened, and I don't recall there ever being an official explanation. There were ongoing ripple effects within the studio, making the development of Red Dead Redemption very difficult. This IGN news segment is from 2016, when former Rockstar North head Leslie Benzies was suing his former employer for withholding royalties.
Leslie Benzies, former head of Rockstar North, developer of the Grand Theft Auto series, has accused publisher Take-Two Interactive, Rockstar, and co-founders the Houser brothers of withholding royalties. Benzies left Rockstar North in January after being on sabbatical since September 2014. According to Polygon, Benzies is suing Take-Two Interactive for $150 million, saying the company tried to force him out after his time off.
What do you think about the Leslie versus Sam controversy and the lawsuit?
I think it's unfortunate. I think it's a shame and a bit sad. I'm not surprised by any of it. Like, I read that lawsuit, right? None of it surprises me on both sides, right? It's a shame. Leslie was dynamite and was just instrumental in growing DMA into Rockstar North and really delivering leading the team that delivered, right, on the code side.
At the time of the lawsuit, Benzie's legal team was trying to establish how vital he was to Rockstar's operations. One example provided was how Benzie stepped in to help finish Red Dead Redemption, despite having no position in the game. These emails are from 2009 and show that the studio was in a deadline crunch with problems just piling more and more. In October 2009, with the deadline coming up, Sam Houser became anxious about Red Dead Redemption not being in good enough shape. He wrote an email to Leslie Benzies that month, saying, "The up and downs are very extreme. We have to fix this. Quickly, help, I'm freaking." The very next day, Sam Houser sent another email to Benzies, further elaborating the game's problems at the time, and how he wanted Benzies to assist. "This, RDR, it's a recurring nightmare," Sam Houser said, "but one we need to get out of. I have problems with the camera all over the place, so much so that I can't be rational or specific about it. The darkness. Please, help me/us get RDR into shape. I'm a jabbering wreck right now," he added. "I need the Benz." The lawsuit goes on to claim that after Benzie stepped in to help, Rockstar San Diego completed work on the game within a few months, getting it ready to show partners such as Sony and Microsoft. Marketing and promotion is a key part of success in the release of any game, and one unique strategy that Rockstar came up with was to hold a Movember contest. As a sponsor for the Movember cause to raise awareness for prostate cancer, the contest was to grow a mustache for the month of November, and whoever grew the best one voted on by the fans got to have a cameo appearance in the game. This Kotaku article released on October 26, 2009, and also the actual webpage at the time from Rockstar, talks more about this contest. On November 26, 2009, 1 month after the announcement of the Movember contest, Rockstar had a new release date for the game, of April 27, 2010. Four days after the new release date announcement, a trailer was released on November 30, 2009, called My Name is John Marston. This trailer would go into a bit more detail of John's story, as well as showcasing the various characters of the game more than the initial trailer did.
My name's John Marston.
What you doing here, Mr. Marston?
I'm here to capture or kill Bill Williamson. I rode in a gang. We robbed trains, banks, held people ransom. Bill Williamson was in that gang.
Dutch always said you were an arrogant son of a...
If I don't capture my former brother in arms, great harm will befall my family.
I thought you were supposed to protect us, Marshal.
Hello, old friend. Been a long time.
On December 15, 2009, Rockstar began releasing short trailers showing different aspects of the game, and a peek into the western world of Red Dead Redemption.
The game attempts to foster a unique sense of organic gameplay and exploration, along with a powerful narrative and a huge cast of characters. One of the goals when designing the game was to create a seamless blend of action and discovery, where things can happen unexpectedly at any time. The world of Red Dead Redemption encompasses a massive territory with 3 unique regions. The result is a massive title that crosses genres and expands and innovates on the idea of the open-world game.
In January of 2010, once again the issue within Rockstar of overworking employees without additional compensation came to surface on a blog on Gamasutra by an anonymous user named Rockstar Spouse. This was a nod to a similar event that occurred in 2004 within EA, where someone made a blog by an EA spouse with similar claims that they were overworking employees.
The term death march has a particular meaning in the software industry, primarily in the gaming industry. It means working obscenely long hours trying to get a project to, quote, code complete. Now, this is sometimes also known as crunch time. I want to tell you the story of one person that rocked the gaming programming industry. Let me read you some selected quotes. Electronics Arts offered a job. The salary was right and the benefits were good, so my significant other took it. I remember that they asked him in one of the interviews, "How do you feel about working long hours?" It's just part of the game industry. A few studios can avoid crunch time as deadlines loom. so we thought nothing of it. Now you gotta love this quote. Now it seems the real crunch, the one that the producers of the title so wisely prepared their team for by running them into the ground ahead of time. The current mandatory hours are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, with the occasional Saturday evening off for good behavior at 6:30 p.m. Wow. And the kicker, for the honor of this treatment, EA salaried employees receive A. No overtime, B. No compensation time. Comp time is the equalization of time off for overtime. Any hours spent during crunch time accrue into days off after the production is shipped. And C. No additional sick or vacation leave. The time just goes away. This post resulted in thousands and thousands of responses. It really struck a nerve with all kinds of people working in the gaming industry and their significant others.
The following is what was posted by Rockstar spouse on Gamasutra. To whomever it may concern, in response to the unfortunate circumstances, some wives of Rockstar San Diego employees have collected themselves to assert their concerns and announce a necessary rejoinder in the form of an immediate action to ameliorate conditions of employees. The turning point for the worst came approximately in the month of March of 2009. Till present, the working conditions persist to deteriorate as employees are manipulated by certain hands that wield the reins of power in Rockstar San Diego. Furthermore, the extent of degradation employees have suffered extends to their quality of life and their family members. Though it is presumed, this unfortunate circumstance is due largely to ignorance and unawareness of most. With enlightened knowledge, action must be taken to protect the rights of employees and those who depend on them. Realizing that such broad claims could hardly spark any interest to take a stand, a better illustration of the wrongdoings made onto Rockstar San Diego workers is necessary. Furthermore, the detailed descriptions about to be given can serve as a starting point, as it will provide a clearer image for change. Initially, as work pressure in the office increases, so do the stress levels of employees. Recently, with the amount of stress that has been built up, there have been physical manifestations caused by stress making health a concern. It is known that some employees have been diagnosed with depression symptoms, and at least one among them is acknowledged to have suicidal tendencies. These will not be eliminated with a full-time masseuse and will only worsen if no change to improved conditions takes place, and managers continue their dishonesty of deadlines. There are understandably times when crunching at work is needed and extended work time is expected. However, as with all systems known to man, there must be an effort for balance. Ergo, when there are times of acceleration, there are other times of deceleration in order to recuperate. This is not being practiced though. Instead of valued employees, the sentiment grows that they have lost not only their sense of being valued, but turned into machines as they were slowly robbed of their humanity. The managers at Rockstar San Diego continue their dishonesty, pushing their employees to the brink of promising temporariness fully equipped with the knowledge of another deadline just around the corner. The rain whips again, and it becomes mandatory to work close to 12 hours a day, including Saturdays, regardless of if an employee has finished all of his duties prior. Yes, these are all horrendous, yet what makes it unacceptable has yet to come. The fact that these conditions, the same ones that have been proven time and time again to worsen the mental, physical, and emotional parts of employees, are met with further obstruction of employee rights. That even of any effort to retain any health still owned by the employee by seeking medical attention on Saturday, because on Sundays most medical offices are closed, they must call in sick. Furthermore, not only is this not received with sympathy or an understanding, but rather they must endure an attitude presented to them that they pose a hindrance. No, such core hours step outside the law and will not be accepted as the norm. In the last years, there have also been many cuts made on benefits despite the increasing demands on employees. After dedicated hard work on a project, weeks of comp time were offered as a reward, an illustration of appreciation and understanding, far from what is being currently met by the employees after nearly a year of constant strenuous activity. Little is there to motivate continuation, as they have also lost a free vacation week between Christmas and New Year's. Without time to recuperate and no efforts being made to alleviate the stress of such conditions would procure on an employee after a period of time serious health concerns. Yet now the health concern becomes another financial concern as the stripping of medical benefits services to realization. It becomes rather worse rather than better, as employees gain experience and become senior. Instead of appreciation, numerous non-exempt designers and artists have had their overtime pay cut as a result for being too senior. Looking to upper management provides no comfort, rather the contrary, with unsuitable behavior from a newly promoted studio manager that vulgarly speaks the F word in most sentences and refuses to look at workers in the face as they pass in the hall. It is clear it is their attempt to ignore the injustice they have implemented on their once valued and appreciated employees. Perhaps it should be them to explain to our children and loved ones the absence of their increasingly frustrated fathers. Yet and still, There's more to be said about the working conditions that Rockstar San Diego employees have had to suffer. While managing to endure the trying times, they were still hit with more blows. Again, balance is denied, as working conditions worsen with no appreciation. Working harder, longer, faster, yet there was never a guarantee of a bonus, nor if there was any earned when they will be received. Moreover, the bonuses could significantly be reduced based on anything the management comes up with, while the employee would have no way to know about it. Thus bringing to light the current Rockstar management has grown to a thirst for power as it enables itself to grow in Rockstar's structure. Besides bonuses, financial appreciation has lacked in other aspects as well. For 4 consecutive years, salary raises have not adjusted properly to cover inflation. This is especially unjust to those who have significantly contributed to projects. Furthermore than unappreciative, employees are disrespected when lied to as a whole on how Rockstar Games does not generate money, and as claims of justification for unappreciated employees are made pointing to the deficit. Meanwhile, the last Grand Theft Auto game made over $1 billion in revenue. Over $1 billion in revenue. So where is the recognition and appreciation to those of whom, without them, such success would have not been made? Conclusively, if these work conditions stay unchanged in the upcoming weeks, preparation will be made to take legal action against Rockstar San Diego. This is the course that naturally presents itself, as either these conditions were manufactured from unawareness, and actions to prove conditions will prove such innocence. Or if no action is seen after this letter, it is clear that other aspects are the cause of the deteriorated conditions of Rockstar San Diego employees, and must further be addressed. Rest assured, all that is desired is compensation for health, mental, financial, and damages done to families of employees. With all due respect, determined devoted wives of Rockstar San Diego employees. To verify what was written in the Rockstar spouse letter, Joystick reached out to various sources to see what was going on. Some of these people had worked on the Midnight Club franchise, and some were from different Rockstar offices. After last week's Rockstar spouse letter, we got in contact with a couple of trusted sources at Rockstar San Diego to find out more information about exactly what's happening inside the studio. Though our sources asked to be kept anonymous, we independently brought up the poor state of the Midnight Club franchise, a series traditionally handled by the Rockstar San Diego team. Jay Pennick and Mark Garone, people who were at the company for over 10 years, were fired in 2009 after the completion of Midnight Club LA. Other major people quit, as they lost hope in the company in the handling of MCLA and didn't want to work on Red Dead Redemption, one source told us. One user who originally commented on the Rockstar spouse post, called Bitter Party of Many, provided a little bit more context and detail to what was being said in the original letter. Where is the detail about people getting performance warnings for not working 11 plus hours a day? The running joke is that donuts were taken away every other week, about $200 in savings per month, yet Rockstar flies in people from all other studios, Vancouver, Leeds, Toronto, New England, etc., and puts them up in a luxurious rental home, gives them per diem, and rents cars for them. How about the temporary appointment of a new studio president who spent thousands at the time on drinking outings, only to give up the position after a few short months? The same user, Bitter Party of Many, also claims that Rockstar dismantled the San Diego studio's Midnight Club team. Please someone explain why the profitable and very functional Midnight Club team was ripped apart. Their technology was thrown away after Midnight Club Los Angeles, and everyone who wasn't fired or quit was shoved onto a project that has been struggling for well over 4 years. Another commenter, posting under the handle Code Monkey, claimed to be a current employee at Rockstar San Diego, and also offered some damning words against the studio level and corporate management team. We're producing a fantastic game right now, but in times past it seemed to have little in the way of direction or conception. If it did indeed have these attributes, they were largely lost upon the majority of the development team, and many of us had little knowledge of what kind of product we were actually trying to put out there. I think we all do now, but it's in no thanks to any concerted effort whatsoever to actively motivate the team, and evangelize the product to the developers themselves. The words echo other statements made by Bitter Party of Many, who claim that Rockstar's New York division had done away with San Diego Studios' top managerial talent. They have fired and demoted all the best and most well-respected managers. They have lost some of the best graphics and optimization people in the industry because of their attitude and management style. What they're left with are a few managers who nobody believes deserves their position, and who nobody likes/respects, and some very talented developers who are just waiting for the project to end so they can move on. You're just not going to get the best work out of people when they don't like, trust, and respect their managers. Another person who commented on the post was none other than Aaron Hoffman, who was the author of the EA spouse post back in 2004. This has been a long time coming for Rockstar. Go get 'em, ladies. These problems don't fix themselves. In response to a comment saying that there hadn't been much progress or change in the gaming industry since EA spouse, and it seemed like history was repeating itself, Aaron Hoffman said, "I agree that if conditions like those at EA in 2004, and in some parts of EA since then, and those at Rockstar were to be widespread, the result would be unionization. But the industry itself saw an improvement from 2005 to 2007, and then a gradual backslide in the years after, though quality of life itself is better than it was on average in 2004. It is an inflammatory red herring to call attention to the International Game Developers Association in this case. I have sat on the IGDA's Quality of Life Committee since it was formed, and the ECQC since 2005 in its formation. No one from Rockstar has ever once contacted the group, nor to my knowledge, sought advice from the IGDA on this issue at all. I've individually spoken with multiple Rockstar San Diego developers over the years, and I've known that this was brewing. But until someone is willing to do something about it, there's nothing that can be done from the outside. Those inside Rockstar right now have the power to change this, and I hope that they do.
And so I had this very shocking experience in the game industry initially. After that, EA actually came through and kind of swept up a lot of our programmers, which they'll tend to do. The company was folding, so they came and hired everybody. So my fiance at the time got hired by EA and immediately went into 13-hour days. I believe this is a long time ago. So this is actually, I'm already talking about it. This is actually why I don't talk about this anymore. I wrote a blog post. The blog post got spread really far and wide. It was about working conditions inside the game industry. It got covered by the New York Times and the LA Times. People were really shocked, which I kind of wasn't shocked by, but people outside were shocked that the working conditions got so brutal. And in this particular case, had gotten brutal from the day that he started, 6 months before the game was supposed to ship. So that was...
This is from multiplayerblog.mtv.com. The source claims that it was a former person who worked at Rockstar New York, to go into more detail about the relationship between Rockstar New York and its San Diego team studio. Perhaps the most interesting, the source spoke about the tenuous relationship between Rockstar New York, the developer's headquarters, and its development studios, by saying, quote, "Anyone from the New York office is feared, because people in the San Diego office know that they are unstable and needy. In other words, if you get a comment from a person from New York, it's a mandate that needs to be immediately addressed, regardless of previous priorities." In the interest of getting a better understanding of how Rockstar New York works, I reached out to current staff members at the company. The response I received from the PR department was a blanket, "Rockstar Games does not comment on rumor or speculation." All other members of the company are under strict non-disclosure agreements and risk termination by talking with the press. So I went with the next best alternative, reaching out to a former staffer at Rockstar NYC, who was able to confirm many of the comments made by the San Diego team members. The staffer spoke under the condition of anonymity. Quote, "I can support what those accounts are saying, where you're working long hours with last-minute demands in no direction." The source went on to compare Rockstar NYC to the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings when dealing with their studios. Teams would apparently work on a title for close to 2 years, but because of other priorities, like a major GTA release, for example, upper management wouldn't focus on the other titles until the major project was done. Basically, you'd have a studio without guidance or milestones for nearly 2 years, and then Rockstar NYC would suddenly pay attention to the project, making major changes as if out of the blue, said the source. That's opposed to any other studio where there are regular meetings and milestones and stuff, so you don't go too far down a path before people come in to make sweeping changes. The long hours apparently were not limited to development studios either, with demands on NYC staffers that were equally high. There were times when you were called in for the weekends and you didn't even know why you were there, said the source. It's kind of like FaceTime, just so the top of Rockstar sees you there. Whether or not you have anything to do there that day, they see you there. The source did say, however, that when there's a high-quality project on the line, it often makes the long hours worthwhile. During the run-up to San Andreas, we probably had 6 days off, from May 2004 through release October 2004. But we were working on San Andreas. It's not like we were working on a Pokemon game. You're making sacrifices before the end result. There's very few times you're able to be a part of something like that.
Hello, somebody in there? In here.
The departure of Terry Donovan, one of Rockstar's co-founders in 2007, was another turning point for the developers, as he was responsible for providing the creative and corporate direction at the company. Donovan had known Dan and Sam Houser, the heads of creative at Rockstar, since high school, and was reportedly one of the few people at the company that was able to challenge the pair. The following is from an article on Engadget.com, released on January 12, 2010. When we recently spoke with our trusted sources from Rockstar San Diego, in addition to yesterday's information about the Midnight Club franchise, we were also told about the troubled state of Red Dead Redemption. One source had said that the game was, quote, "a complete disaster for most of 2009 and previous. It has since turned around a little bit, but there are huge problems with it still. Unsurprisingly, the issues with the game are repeatedly claimed to be the result of mismanagement, along the same lines as what was mentioned in the recent Rockstar Spouse letter. Another source claimed, Red Dead Redemption has been in production for 6 years, mainly because of horrible management and lack of direction due to fear of disrespecting Rockstar New York. It will never get the money back in sales it cost to create it for those 6 years. We asked Woodbush, Morgan's Michael Patchard, to estimate how many copies he thinks Red Dead Redemption needs to sell to make back its development costs, and more importantly for Take-Two to be profitable. I'd say realistically, if everyone at Rockstar San Diego was working on it this whole time, so let's assume 4 years to be fair. Red Dead Revolver was released in March 2004. That's $4 million, about $10 million a year to run the studio. To make that back and just to break even, you need at least $80 million in sales, 1.75 units. For profit, $160 million, 3.5 million units. Patcher added that it's got a shot, and that from what he's seen of the game, it looks phenomenal. Our sources are less hopeful, unfortunately. The functional team that was on Midnight Club was shattered. All the people who didn't quit or get fired were thrown onto Red Dead Redemption, many of them being demoted. The completely dysfunctional team that is RDR was put to top priority. The people who had floundered on the project or outright screwed up were promoted, and are now in complete control of the studio, and they're running it into the ground. We'll have to see when the game arrives in stores this April, if it does. 3 days after the article in MTV Multiplayer blog, Rockstar posted a newswire with some additions to their wallpaper collection, which seemed to make light of the comparison of Rockstar New York and the Eye of Sauron, which was stated in the blog. The page itself was taken down and not archived, but these were the wallpapers that were originally posted. This Kotaku article goes into more detail about this newswire post, capping off a week during which Rockstar Games' New York team was unfavorably described as an Eye of Sauron overlooking its development studios. The company just posted some new additions to its wallpaper series. The company entitled the 3-image series, The Eye is Watching. Earlier this week, an anonymous ex-Rockstar employee described to MTV the dynamic between Rockstar New York headquarters and its satellite studios such as Rockstar San Diego, the development studio behind the upcoming Red Dead Redemption. They liken the New York office to the Eye of Sauron and the watchful presence of the evil overlord in The Lord of the Rings. After the storm of negativity that surrounded Rockstar regarding their working conditions, on January 21st, 2010, they responded. The following is from a Kotaku article that was released at that time. Unfortunately, this is a case of people taking the opinions of a few anonymous posters on message boards as fact. The response began, "No business is ever perfect, but Rockstar Games is a tight-knit team made up of around 900 supremely talented and motivated professionals, many of whom have worked here for a very long time. We're saddened if any former members of any studio did not find their time here enjoyable or creatively fulfilling. We wish them well in finding an environment more suitable to their temperaments and needs, but the vast majority of our company are solely focused on delivering cutting-edge interactive entertainment. We've always cared passionately about the people working here, and have tried to maintain a supportive, creative environment. There is simply no way Rockstar could continue to make such large-scale, high-quality games without this. That being said, making great games is very challenging, which is why we have and will continue to keep some of the best talent in the industry and support them in every way we can." The overall reception to Rockstar's response was negative, with many saying that Rockstar didn't outright deny the allegations, but they were more just dismissive and almost justifying their allegedly horrible practices. These comments were taken from a Eurogamer version similar to that of the original Kotaku article. ActionFit said, "Having worked in the industry, I know who I'm inclined to believe, though I guess there would be no way to really get the bare facts unless someone get the law involved. Quote, 'You're a bunch of cunts, Rockstar San Diego management.' A couple of weeks pass. 'No, we're not. Here's a picture of the Eye of Sauron to show how seriously we take such accusations. So, meh.' Octave Doctor said, 'They didn't really deny the accusations.' Pasco said, 'They don't really deny anything. Quite the opposite. And wish them well with finding an environment more suitable to their temperaments and needs. But the vast majority of our company are solely focused on delivering cutting-edge interactive entertainment. This is their priority. Being cutting edge. Not happy developers. If you can't stand the heat and put in the same insane hours desperate single newcomers with no kids do, then get out of the kitchen. There's a reason that there's an age threshold in the industry before people leave." With the game release being on the horizon, Rockstar ramped up their marketing and promotion. 1 week later, on January 28th, a new gameplay series video was released, showing the various weapons of the game.
The first, terrifying machine guns appeared, a weapon that rained death and would transform armed conflict forever.
On February 3rd, the Referendum Outfits trailer was released, which showed the various outfits of the game as well as their in-game perks. The next day, Rockstar announced their winner from the Movember contest held in 2009. It was Charles Lees from Canada. His likeness was used for the Walton Gang character Movan Bar, and also the bounty needed for the Deadly Assassin outfit.
Apologies for the severity of the gesture.
A few days later, on February 10th, to promote the game, there was a mural painted in New York. The next day, the third part in the gameplay series was released, which showed the various lawman characters of the game.
Now, while the rules may not be perfect, the alternative is hell.
On February 24th, the fourth part in the gameplay series was released, which showed the female characters of the game.
An illiterate gunslinger, you sure know how to make a girl blush.
Despite Rockstar's efforts during the crunch to get the game released by April 27th, on March 4th, the announcement was made that the game would be delayed once again with a new release date of May 18th of 2010. After the delayed release date, some said that the delay would hurt the game's profits. Here is some of what was said in this GameIndustry.biz article. Rockstar's newest game, Red Dead Redemption, is unlikely to be profitable for publisher Take-Two, due to its protracted development and the high marketing budget earmarked for its release. The game was delayed yesterday by 3 weeks, pushing it out of the publisher's second quarter and into the third, and highlights the company's inability to be profitable during years when it does not release a console installment on its market-leading Grand Theft Auto franchise. Red Dead Redemption was delayed into Q3, which ironically we believe helps Q2 earnings, as it is unlikely to be a profitable title given the 3 to 4 years of development costs and very heavy market spending, wrote Todd Greenwald of Signal Hill Capital Group in a note to its investors. On March 17th, the Life in the West trailer was released, which highlighted the aspects of everyday life in the Red Dead world.
At the end of each day, Marston can pitch camp or join another campfire and hear news and rumors from throughout the region.
Fella's gun locked up on him.
A few days later, Rockstar uncovered the artwork for the game on March 22nd. On March 24th, the sixth part of the gameplay series was released, which was the Gentleman and Vagabond trailer.
Say we tar and feather him right now.
I apologize if science is not your forte.
Goodbye, John Marston. It's been a great pleasure.
That pretty little mouth of yours gonna be spitting blood.
Rockstar is known for being mysterious and not attending very many gaming events, such as E3. However, at PAX East 2010, Rockstar had an exhibition which showed some of the game as well as more artwork.
All the way around the corner.
Let me ask you a question. What are you guys expecting to see at PAX? Because truthfully, I've never been to PAX. This is gonna be our first one. So what are you guys expected to see, like, for the new year?
Red Dead Redemption?
Oh, word it up! All right, I had to take the mic back on that one, son, because Red Dead Redemption is looking crazy, and we all know Rockstar is the truth. So that's gonna be high. We all looking forward to that. So.
On April 2nd, Part 2 of the Life in the West gameplay series was released, which expanded on what was shown in the first part.
But as players travel across the West and into Mexico, they soon realize that life here is a fight to survive. In the West, gangs sometimes overrun decrepit towns. While on the highway, roadside bandits are a threat, and people you meet will ask for your protection.
I've been marooned out here.
The goal of Red Dead Redemption is to push the boundaries of the open world game.
A few days later, on April 5th, an article was released on mcyuk.com talking about the promotion of the game. Rockstar Games is spending big to ensure Red Dead Redemption becomes its biggest game of the year. The publisher has huge expectations for Redemption, following glowing reports from the press, and hopes it can stand beside GTA as its next blockbuster franchise. The Wild West action title will benefit from a huge pre-launch TV push and the firm's first cinema campaign. This is our most ambitious game to date and our biggest UK release this year, said Rockstar GM Neil Stephen. We're spending a larger portion of our TV budget pre-launch than we ever have before to ensure Red Dead Redemption is established as a massive AAA title. For the first time as a company, we'll be running an on-screen cinema advertising campaign. We think the cinematic nature of the game makes it a perfect fit for cinema, and we will be executing a nationwide ad campaign targeting the audiences of Robin Hood, Iron Man 2, and Prince of Persia. The cinema campaign will be supported with foyer posters where consumers can download content from the game via Bluetooth. The publisher has signed deals with companies such as IGN, GameSpot, YouTube, Microsoft, and Love Film for free movie downloads and Xbox Live content. The game has garnered an incredibly positive reception from the gaming and lifestyle press, with many outlets placing Red Dead Redemption as a possible Game of the Year contender, added Stephen. In terms of sales projections, we're aiming high, and are focusing more attention on retail channels than ever before. Once the game is released, we expect that word of mouth and our massive launch media campaign will propel the game to excellent sales. This leaves us with very high expectations for what we think is our next blockbuster gaming franchise. On April 8th, the next part in the gameplay series was released, showing the multiplayer free roam and all the activities players can do with their friends in the Red Dead world.
The free roam in Red Dead Redemption is attempting to change the concept of multiplayer in open world games. There are more structured competitive modes we'll reveal soon.
To further promote the game, Rockstar released RDR Gunslingers, which was a Facebook app which allowed users to duel their friends. There is some footage of the gameplay, but it can no longer be played, not even through Internet Archive.
You got a bit to your name.
The unique promotion didn't stop with RDR Gunslingers. During this time, the O'Reilly 300 race was going on, and through a GameStop-sponsored car, there was a Red Dead Redemption livery on Joey Logano's Toyota. He got second place in the race behind Kyle Busch.
50,000 as some of the folks have to get back to work. Joey Logano, our pole sitter. He finished 5 laps down, so he's about 7 miles fresher. Good way to look at it. Always find the positive as they come down the front stretch. The 7th race of the 2010 NASCAR Nationwide Series is green.
Thank you, guys. Woo! Yeah!
Joey Logano comes across second. Reed Sorensen third.
Joey Logano with his best nationwide finish of the season. Second place, not the number you wanted, I know, but what was the difference between Kyle and your car today?
Last run was close as we've got it. Kevin did a good job getting the car close, and Kyle just took off a little bit better than me, got by me.
On April 23rd, the final part of the gameplay series was released, which showed the competitive multiplayer modes which had classic modes at the time, such as Capture the Flag, as well as gang shootouts and free-for-all matches.
Matches begin with something new. a classic Mexican standoff. Each mode is a Western version of a classic multiplayer game, based around a particular town or geographical feature. Hold Your Own is a classic team-based capture the flag, where each team has one base and one bag of gold. Complete weapons challenges with tiers of kills and headshots, and get a golden version of that weapon. Perfect for the outlaw with a certain style.
On April 27th, the GameStop Red Dead Redemption ad aired, which incentivized players to pre-order the game to get the Deadly Assassin outfit, which had some in-game stat bonuses.
Targeting that regenerates twice as fast with the exclusive Deadly Assassin outfit only when you pre-order Red Dead Redemption at GameStop. Power to the players. Rated M for mature.
From then on, commercials were released weekly, leading all the way up to the coveted release date. One day before the game released, Dan Houser had an interview with the New York Times about the game. For a genre that has been so essential to the film business, it may seem surprising that the Western has traditionally never lent itself to video games. Then again, Western games, like Division's Gun from 2005, have never sold well, because there has never before been a Western game that was truly made well. In an interview last month, Dan Houser, one of Rockstar's founders and the company's creative leader, described the challenge and opportunity quite aptly. Westerns are about place, he said. They're not called outlaw films. They're not even called cowboy and Indian films. They're called Westerns. They're about geography. We're talking about a format that is inherently geographical, Mr. Houser added. You're talking about a medium, video games. The one thing they unquestionably do better than other mediums is represent geography. The day had finally come. After many years of hard work from the developers and the promotion team, and after battling internal conflicts within the company and law disputes, Red Dead Redemption was released on May 18th of 2010, with widespread acclaim and great sales.
Mr. Marston, over here!
Hey, yo, what's up, folks? This is Vince from the Game Basement. I'm here for the midnight release of Red Dead Redemption. About to get my Clint Eastwood on. Let's see how it goes. So why are you here for Red Dead? What's the big thing that's bringing you to it? Oh, wait, so y'all just hanging out?
Yeah, no. He's just getting the game. I guess I'm the cool guy here.
Now, what made you want to pick up Red Dead?
Cowboys.
Cowboys. All right, so you're a cowboy fan.
I'm a huge cowboy fan.
Is your little dressing up cowgirl stuff, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. Horses, all that shit.
Oh my God, look at this. Look at this.
Look at this.
What's all this nonsense going on?
Red Dead.
Okay, Red Dead Redemption, right?
And this
is
is
that 2 copies? What's
well, see, this is the one I'm gonna put on my bookshelf.
Right.
And this, I'm never gonna open this one.
Okay, right.
And this is the one I'm gonna play and then probably use as a coaster. So.
Right. Gotcha.
I don't know.
Well, last thing. Look.
What's up? What do you want?
Wait. You guys are gonna play together, but you have different copies. What's going on?
We both have Xbox and PS3. So
Yeah, we do,
He
so-
comes to my place, I kick his ass. I go to his place, he kicks my ass.
Okay.
Couldn't have said it better than the other.
Go! Oh, got it! We're shooting down!
Oh!
Right!
Well, yeah!
Shortly after the release, it was also reviewed on G4's X-Play show, where it got 5 stars and also had a few tips for the game as well.
John's journey will take him all over this extremely expansive environment, where he'll come across everything you'd expect out of a Western. The rolling prairies, Deadwood-esque frontier towns. Let's not forget the wildlife, like deer, and bears, and buffalo. Throw in the multiplayer, and there's an even more Wild West feel to the whole adventure. Actually, it's more fun than multiplayer. Up to 16 cowpokes can participate in deathmatch, capture the flag, and of course, shootouts. It has got to have your shootouts. The more, the merrier. Red Dead Redemption gets 5 out of 5. Westerns will never be the same.
As a follow-up to the game, director John Hillcoat made a short film, and the trailer debuted on May 27th, with the short film later debuting on May 29th. The short film mainly covers the New Austin part of the game, as well as John's pursuit of Bill Williamson.
Red Dead Redemption. Rated M for mature. Prairie. Oh.
On May 31st, Rockstar released some new merchandise for the game. This is from a Joystick article, talking about the merchandise. Quote, "If you're looking to recreate some of the parlor games played in Red Dead Redemption, Rockstar's store has been updated to include a wide variety of instruments you can use to do so with the utmost authenticity. Now available on the store are a handful of collector's packs, which include Rockstar branded playing cards, dice, TNT-shaped candles, and Eradicator soap, which promises to be tough on blood and manure. We certainly hope those two aren't frequently a problem for you. There are also a few new shirts from Redemption, and of course copies of the game itself available on the storefront. Sadly, there's no option to purchase Donkey Lady action figures, but maybe we'll get those in a later batch of merchandise." With the success of its initial release, Rockstar started releasing multiple DLCs for the game. Starting with the Outlaws to the End pack, which came out on June 22nd. This pack added 6 co-op missions to multiplayer. On July 15th, there was a studio layoff of 40 employees at Rockstar San Diego. The following is from the 6axis.com. Steve Martin said, "As is typical with game development, our team sizes have always fluctuated over the course of the development cycle. As Rockstar San Diego transitions from the launch of Red Dead Redemption onto future projects, we are realigning our resources in order to continue to develop games as effectively as possible. We are ensuring that all employees who are affected by these changes are being treated with care," continues Martin. While we have no announcements to make regarding the sequel to Red Dead Redemption, the team here are hard at work on the development of the downloadable content for the game. The next DLC was the Legends and Killers DLC, which released on August 10th. This DLC included 9 multiplayer maps, 9 characters from Red Dead Revolver, and also added the Tomahawk weapon for single and multiplayer.
For fans of 2004's Red Dead Revolver, the characters are making a cameo appearance in the multiplayer of Red Dead Redemption.
Liars and Cheats was released on September 21st, which added poker and liar's dice to multiplayer, horse races, 7 new gang hideouts, 4 new hunting grounds, 15 characters from the Red Dead story to multiplayer, as well as a new competitive mode, Stronghold, which was similar to Capture the Flag.
Teams of 8 can play. One team attacks, the other defends, and then halfway through you switch sides.
The Hunting and Trading Outfits DLC was released on October 12th, which added the Savvy Merchant and Expert Hunter outfits to single player, as well as the addition of a new animal, the Jackalope. On July 10th, Wired released an article talking about Undead Nightmare and some of the other DLCs for the game. Finally, with the Undead Nightmare pack, Red Dead Redemption will attempt to get the Weird West right where the Jonah Hex movie failed. In this expansion, ghost towns and cemeteries will crawl with the Walking Dead. Rockstar promises a new single-player adventure for this supernatural setting, as well as a handful of new challenges, quests, and playable zombie characters for multiplayer. On September 28th, Rockstar Newswire posted an article showing some of the promotional artwork for the DLC. Today we present brand new, original artwork for the Undead Nightmare pack for Red Dead Redemption, featuring a zombified homage to the original Red Dead Redemption cover art. Look for a widescreen downloadable desktop iteration of it soon as part of a new Undead Nightmare art series. On September 30th, the first trailer for Undead Nightmare was released. On October 7th, Rockstar did a fan Q&A for the upcoming DLC. Quote, "So is this going to be a dream or something, or are the zombies going to be real in the RDR universe?" Uncle Tyrone. "I'm pretty sure this is some sort of dream that John is having." Rodrigo 2000. Rockstar. The Undead Nightmare story takes place during the home period of the main game, while John is trying to rebuild his ranch before the end of the game, a period that we imagine took several months. You play Undead Nightmare as John, and it's entirely a standalone game that runs separately from Red Dead Redemption's main story. As for whether it's literally a nightmare or not, you're going to have to play the game and find out for yourself.
Waiting for the passing of the storm.
I hope so.
Zombie games have been done before. Why'd you do it, Rockstar? Just my honest opinion. Love the game, by the way. From received via mouth off. If you still aren't compelled by a weird Western take on Red Dead based on screenshots, trailers, and info released so far, we hope that the features that we reveal in the coming weeks will do so, and we urge you to give it a try on release day. When you see hordes of the undead moving across the plains in an open world setting, you'll experience something that is entirely unlike any other zombie game, and that feels as much a part of the classic American lore as the Wild West itself. We think putting zombies into a world that we, and we hope you all, know and love, really works as you already know the characters in the world. To see them transformed by this undead horde is a big part of the fun, and helps make zombies interesting as a theme.
I mean, folk respect me. I am the new king, Archibald Andrews. Me. Now pay homage.
On October 8th, Rockstar announced that they would be attending the New York Comic Con to show some of the DLC. For those of you in the greater New York metropolitan area, we're offering an exclusive opportunity to check out the Undead Nightmare Pack for Red Dead Redemption this upcoming weekend at New York Comic Con. Visit the Rockstar Games booth to be among the first to get a hands-on look at Undead Nightmare. Plus, we'll also be giving away some limited run Red Dead Redemption promo items for fans that stop by.
We're here live at Comic-Con and we just got out of the Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare demo, and while we weren't allowed to videotape inside, we did get a hands-on experience with the new downloadable content available for Xbox 360 coming soon. And it puts a whole new twist on the game, a complete new storyline where there's zombies infesting the whole area. The whole map is available, they said, with new improved zombies and a new look to fit with that. The demo was a graveyard scene with burning the coffins and killing the zombies that came out of them. So we'll have a whole write-up and impression about it on fptv25.com.
On October 13th, the second trailer for Undead Nightmare was released.
And a virulent plague.
Kill them before they kill all of us! Kill them!
Kill him! He's one of them!
On October 18th, GameSpot did a Q&A with Dan Houser to talk about the upcoming DLC. One of Red Dead Redemption's biggest strengths was its instantly relatable story of one man trying to reunite with his family. It's probably fair to say that a zombie outbreak doesn't carry that same real-world familiarity. Why the decision to move in a more fantastical direction with Undead Nightmare? Dan Houser. Personally, I spend far too little time racing around the country on horse, killing former business associates, so I don't know how much of Marston's story I could relate to in that way. Finding something that people can relate to is vital in any quest-type story, whatever the setting. The challenge with Red Dead Redemption from a narrative standpoint was to take the myths and motifs of the Wild West and arrange them in a way that felt like they did resonate with a contemporary audience, while still being very much a part of the Wild West tradition. One of the key ways we did that was, as you say, through Marston's family.
Hold your excuses until you figured out which one to use.
With Undead Nightmare, we have long wanted to find a way to make zombies interesting. And one of the ways that we thought that we could do that was by putting zombies into an existing universe, so the player can see how characters they already know respond to the madness of a zombie outbreak. This is, we believe, more interesting than creating a world that people do not know and using it purely for zombies.
Up your party.
Hey, John, come join us. We're having a jig. John, have you met Mary Lou?
So the fantastical direction was something we wanted to pose on an existing non-fantastical world, because of their shared American cinematic heritage, the beautiful landscape, and our love for the character set. We felt Red Dead was a perfect candidate for that. And as this adventure comes together, we're really pleased with the results. Zombies obviously add a new dimension to the world, and at the same time, the familiar world of Red Dead Redemption adds something from a narrative perspective to a zombie experience. It gives context and depth it would otherwise lack. GameSpot. What were the lessons you learned from The Lost and Damned and the Ballad of Gay Tony that you applied to this first proper single-player expansion of Red Dead? Dan Hauser. The underlying goal with both The Lost and Damned and Ballad of Gay Tony was to make two games that felt very different from each other and from the main GTA 4 experience, that changed the gameplay experience as much as possible, while providing different intersecting narratives. We still believe in that approach, i.e. a story that should be entirely separate, with overlaps but not direct continuation of a game's story. The mechanics should be altered as much as possible to provide a new gameplay experience. We just use that same philosophy to do very different things this time, make a different genre of a game within a world that the player already knows, to turn a western into a survival horror game. DLC and game expansions remain very much areas of experimentation for us, but we have enjoyed working both on the interlinked urban narrative approach in GTA and the change the world approach for Red Dead.
Substitute my inadequacies with their money because after all, they want to stay up all night talking bullshit to morons because they enjoy it.
GameSpot. The world of zombie fiction spans a pretty wide gulf, from the humorous Shaun of the Dead to the legitimately scary 28 Days Later. Tell us about the type of tone and atmosphere you guys ultimately settled on with Undead Nightmare and how you arrived there. Dan Hauser. It's difficult because zombies are inherently ridiculous, but they also have to be frightening or the game would be very boring. So we tried to find a tone that was legitimately terrifying at times and somewhat silly or self-aware at other times. Again, using the character set and landscape from Red Dead Redemption made both easier. Using known characters gives you a shorthand for both humor and fear, as players already know about the characters and their relationships, and helps us mine them for satire, social commentary, or pathos, while the American countryside and its landscape is as much a part of horror iconography as it is for the Wild West. On October 19th, the Graveyards trailer was released. This showed some of the gameplay from the cemeteries in the game in a 1950s serial style.
They eat you alive. See as mankind's last hope fights the evil from below.
The next day, on October 20th, the Weapons trailer was released, which showed some of the weapons of the game such as the torch and the blunderbuss, once again in the 1950s serial style.
Zombie bait attracts the undead hidden a blunderbuss and blast them to oblivion.
On October 22nd, an Undead Nightmare TV commercial was released.
I'm going to wander down that lonely, deserted street and get my back.
I've never seen anything quite like this. Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. Download on October 26th.
The final trailer for the game was released on October 25th.
To find his woman possessed. Undead Nightmare is a new single-player story, and players will recognize some familiar faces for sure.
The next day, on October 26th, Undead Nightmare was released, and it was met with great acclaim, even recommended on XPlay.
The land may be blighted, but it's still as well-written, acted, and plotted as ever.
The dead have risen, and a virulent plague is turning people into flesh-eating crazies.
On December 11th, 2010, Spike TV held their annual Video Game Awards, where they cover all the games that had come out in the past year. Red Dead Redemption won Game of the Year, and Jose Gonzalez also performed Far Away live.
Welcome to the 2010 Video Game Awards, the premier night for the biggest entertainment industry on the planet.
A man, a horse, and his gun. Rockstar Games used these humble ingredients to craft our next nominee for Game of the Year. To play Red Dead Redemption is a truly cinematic experience, elevated by its unforgettable soundtrack, which has already garnered 2 VGA awards, Best Original Score and Best Original Game. Here to perform his winning song, Far Away, ladies and gentlemen, Jose Gonzalez.
of Game of the Year is Red Dead Redemption.
To you. Okay. A lot of people said we were crazy to make a Western game. So we want to dedicate this award tonight to everyone in the video game industry who's crazy enough to do something different. Okay? Thank you, everyone. At Rockstar, we believe that video games are the most innovative form of entertainment today. And it's important for people to do different things in order to keep moving the industry forward.
On May 7th, 2011, Ross Hagen, who was born as Leland Lando Lilly, passed away from cancer at the age of 72. He was born in Williams, Arizona on May 21st, 1938. He grew up on a farm in Oregon, joined the Army, then later pursued acting in the 1960s. He had a rugged look with a distinctive deep, gravelly voice, and was frequently cast as charming and likable tough guys on both sides of the law. His early career was guest appearances on TV shows, such as The Big Valley, Here Comes the Brides, The Virginian.
Come on in.
He was cast in Doctari, where he played Bart Jason, a safari photographer. He had roles in many B films such as Side Hackers,
Big dancer, and a very fantastic artist. And Gus came back from, I think he was shooting Sand Pebbles or something, and he came back and we were buddies, and we said, let's make a movie.
The Hellcats.
They're the Hellcats. Slugging, scratching, clawing. Are they girls or devils?
Wonder Woman.
It is possible for me to transplant any part of the human body.
Any part?
Any part.
Boss Hagen is Mike Harbor. He'll work for anyone, do anything.
Dinosaur Island, and much more.
Are about to have an experience beyond their imagination when they come across an uncharted island.
Please, God, let it be Club Med.
Inhabited by exotic women.
He also directed 7 films such as The Glove and Born.
This is a killing machine.
A little thing called a riot glove.
5 pounds of lead and steel. One shot. You got it.
His last performance was when he did voice acting for Red Dead Redemption and Undead Nightmare, as the infamous gunslinger Landon Ricketts.
You know, John, I've lived a long life. I've seen this land when it was just wilderness and scrub. I've seen missionaries nailed to crosses by shaman and burn into just the cinders of their misguided devotion. I've seen slaves get set free and return to a bondage even more confusing than the one they left behind. I've seen diseases wipe out entire communities in a weekend. I've seen bad men make their own Valhalla out in the bush, with harems of maidens and the hunting of men as a sport. I've seen men struggle with principles and morals and the very meaning of existence. I've killed all that can be killed.
Final DLC for the game came out on September 13th of 2011. It was a Myth and Mavericks pack, which included 8 new multiplayer characters and new locations for gang matches and Stronghold.
Get ready. That didn't go well for you. All right, the gold is here. Sweet justice. Holy woo! They let you out with children, I see you? You damn freak!
For months I've thought about how I wanted to end this documentary, so I'll say this. The journey that this franchise has gone through has been a rocky one full of obstacles. Obstacles as a byproduct from the gaming environment at the time, and from within Rockstar itself. What Rockstar did was revolutionary, bringing a once-thought dead genre back to life, and ushering in a new generation to take interest in the Old West. But we must also remember the sacrifices made by those who worked on the game, and that many people were treated unfairly during the process. But overall, I would say the development of the game was something beautiful born out of something ugly. A beautiful something that would have a lasting impact on the gaming industry and to those who have played it. The redemption was not only for John Marston's story, but for the Western genre itself. This is the making of Red Dead Redemption.
Your hands upon a dead man's gun, and you're looking down the sights. Your heart is worn and the seams are torn, and they've given you a reason to fight. And you're not gonna take what they've got to give, and you're not gonna let them take your will to live, because they've taken enough, and you've given them all you can give. Luck won't save them tonight. They've given you a reason to fight. And all those storms you've been chasing finally rain down tonight. And all this pain you've been facing will finally come into the light. Your hands upon a dead man's gun, and you're looking down the sights. Your heart is worn and the seams are torn, and they've given you a reason to fight. And you're not gonna take what they've got to give, and you're not gonna let them take your will to live, because they've taken enough, and you've given them all you can give. Luck won't save them tonight. They've given you a reason to fight. And all those storms you've been chasing finally rain down tonight. And all this pain you've been facing will finally come into the light. Your hands upon a dead man's gun, and you're looking down the sights. Your heart is worn and the seams are torn, and they've given you a reason to fight. And you're not gonna take what they've got to give, and you're not gonna let them take your will to live, because they've taken